I opened my eyes inside a story I knew far too well. A world where the villain was destined to fall, and anyone standing too close would be dragged down with him. Unfortunately, I wasn't just close. I was his cousin. Not the heroine. Not the hidden genius who changes the plot. Just a minor side character fated to disappear the moment the villain's downfall begins. In the original story, my future was simple, useful until I wasn't, then erased without mercy. But I remember everything. The betrayals. The turning points. The exact moment when the villain crosses the line he can never return from. If I stay the same, I die with him. If I try to oppose him, I die even faster. So there's only one choice left. I will survive. Even if it means standing beside the villain, guiding him, restraining him, or rewriting his fate before the story reaches its tragic end. Because this time, I'm not just the villain's cousin. I'm the one who knows how the story ends. She closed her eyes and thought, Teacher, I saved all of them. This should be enough. I was happy for a bit as a kindergarten teacher, but it looks like my life ends here. Who? She said W8U. Lee Siyun was a kindergarten teacher. After losing consciousness in a bus accident, I found myself in the romance fantasy novel I used to read, Cinderella Who Doesn't Wear Glass Shoes, a #1 romance fantasy bestseller. The main plot is about the protagonist who can see spirits marked by a pink hue and her life in the magical academy. In addition to the crown prince, who ends up with the female protagonist, there is Ariel, the villain, Grand One, the commander of the knights, and Sirius, the cursed second prince. As the crown prince and the female protagonist head to their happy ending, all the supporting male characters meet a tragic fate in an extreme plot twist. Cernia. So, am I the main character of this novel? She said. Cernia, are you there? I'm just a minor character. I'm the late Duke's daughter who only shows up briefly in a side story. Cernia said. I'm sorry. I was lost in thought for a while. Cernia Ardentine, 7 years old. A woman said. Cernia, please read me a love story. Another girl said no. She's going to read me a hero story. Cernia said. After the late Duke and his wife died in an accident, his younger brother, the current Duke, inherited the house and took me in as I had become an orphan. These two are my younger cousins, Ariel and Ariel. Ariel Ardentine, 5 years old. Both said, what do you think? Cernia thought, even if they look angelic now, these two will become the greatest villains in this story. Ariel said, I'm just so happy to be with you guys. Cernia thought, and I'm the one who makes these two villains. In the original story, I've never loved anyone like you. Cernia is jealous of the twins. There is no one who will love you wholeheartedly in this world, and she kills the nanny. Ever. She ends her own life, cursing the two. Cernia thought, I will not let it end like in the original, never. Ariel said. Cernia. She replied, why yes? Ariel said, please read this romance novel. Cernia said, let's see. The grown-ups' affairs? Let's read this book when we're older. Ariel said, oh. Cernia replied, haha, got it, I'll do as Cernia says. Cernia said, why yes, thanks. Ariel said instead, give me a kiss please. Cernia said, what? Ariel said, that's not fair. Me too, I want one too. Cernia thought I was told not to spoil them, but this is our little secret, okay? How can anyone not adore these cuties? Ariel said, yes. It's our secret. Ariel said, secret. She thought, that's right, children need to be loved. I will protect these children from becoming villains. I'll protect my own life as well. A man said, I can hear the noise all the way outside the door. Nermes Ardentine. Duke Ardentine. The Duke said, you must behave according to the family's standards. Cernia said, are you okay? I'm sorry. You guys got scolded for no reason. Ariel said, does father hate us? Cernia said, no. The Duke doesn't hate you. Ariel said, right. Father doesn't hate us. Cernia said, Ariel. Ariel said, why yes, I'm okay. Cernia said, all right. I'll go and have a talk with your father. Ariel said, why? Cernia said, that's because I love you guys. Even though I love the twins, they also need the love of their parents. I'll do whatever is necessary to stop the twins from becoming villains and save myself." A man said, "Young miss, did you come to see the Duke?" Senia thought, what should I do? Now that I'm here, I'm getting nervous." The man said, "Young miss." Senia said, "Why yes." "Dane, can I see the Duke right now? There's something I wish to discuss with the Duke." The man said, "I understand." Senia thought, this is the first time I'll be meeting the Duke since entering this mansion. What should I do if he refuses to meet me? The man said, "Young miss, I'll take you to the office." She thought the scratching sound of the pen is relaxing. With the Argentine's signature hair and eye color, the original story portrays the twins' father as cold as ice. "That's Duke Argentine." The Duke said, "I heard you have something to discuss with me." Senia said, Yes." She thought, yes. Right now, I'm 7 years old. A little nonsense should be forgiven, right? Surely, they wouldn't kick out a young child. Senia said, "Duke, Ariel and Ariel are only 5 years old. They're at an age where they really need their parents' love. I understand you're busy, but it would be nice if you could be with the children sometimes," the Duke said. "With the children?" She thought, for example, tea time would be nice. Telling the Duke to show them love right away won't work. It would be better if they just spent more time together. "Why does he look like that?" Senia said, "Am I really being kicked out?" The Duke said, "Did the twins make you do this? Did they ask to be loved?" Senia said, "No, this is what I think. The Duke said they are the children who will take over Argentine in the future. I can't pamper them." Senia said, "Duke, you are correct. The members of the Argentine family need to be strong. However, if you raise the heirs too strictly by focusing only on punishment, they won't grow up properly." She said, "I just want to live too." The Duke said, "You're saying exactly what Roan said." Roan, it's the name of Cernia's deceased mother. Cernia thought, if mother had said the same thing, that means I have to push a little harder. Cernia said, "It's not just about sweet words. Once a month, during tea time, the Duke can check the children's progress, praising or giving them advice. This will be a chance for the twins to grow quickly." The Duke said, "What's the benefit for you if I do that?" Cernia thought, "Benefit?" She said, "The fact that they'll grow up properly?" The Duke said, "Will you be okay?" Cernia said, "About what?" The Duke said, "I understand. I'll let Dane know. In that case, I'll take my leave." Cernia thought, the fact that they'll grow up properly? Cernia said, "You sound just like Roan." "Guys. Ariel. Ariel." The Duke, she said, "It's because of you." Ariel said, "Because you were sobbing." Ariel said, "It's because of you." Cernia said, "Why are you fighting again?" "Why?" Both Ariel and Ariel said Cernia. Ariel hugged her and said, "Cernia, I was wrong." Ariel said, "Please don't go, Cernia." Cernia said, "What are you talking about? I am fine." Ariel cried and said, "Even if I'm not loved by my father, as long as I have you, I'm fine." Cernia said, "Where could I go? I'll always be by your side." "Were you afraid I'd be kicked out by the Duke?" "Don't worry. Everything's fine. Besides, the Duke isn't as heartless as you think." Ariel said, "Father?" Ariel said, "Cold-hearted?" Cernia said, "Well, maybe a little. He's a little bit of that too. But from now on, you'll get to spend time together once a month." She said, "We will get to spend time with Father once a month? What should we play tomorrow?" She thinks one step up. I took a single step towards escaping the death that occurs in the original story. Is this a dream? That is the last person I met as Lee Sian. There are so many things I want to ask. My voice won't come out. Wait a minute. Hold on. Who are you? In the original story, Cernia was supposed to curse the twins and die at the age of 10. Cernia thinks there is no one in this world who will truly love you. But I am still alive, even now, at 16 years old. During this time, the relationship between the twins and the Duke has improved, and the atmosphere in the house of Duke Argentine has changed for the better. There's not much time left. In a year, the Crown Prince's birthday banquet will take place. She opens the book and thinks a few years later, the original story will begin in full swing. Notes on the events of the original story. As soon as I could write, the very first thing I made was my own summary of the original story. It needs to be checked once more. Cinderella Doesn't Wear Glass Slippers was a twisted romance story involving 2 protagonists, 1 villainess, and 3 secondary male leads. At the Crown Prince's 15th birthday banquet, Ariel falls in love with the Crown Prince at first sight, but the Crown Prince falls in love with the heroine, Daisy. Consumed by jealousy, Ariel curses Daisy at the cost of her own life. However, thwarting Ariel's ploy, Daisy breaks the curse and survives because Sirius, one of the secondary male leads, sacrifices his life to lift Daisy's curse. Even after 2 people died, the tragedy in the novel did not end. After that, Ariel started to put in even more effort to make Daisy's life a pain. At the climax of the novel, Ariel starts a rebellion to take Daisy away. The 3rd secondary male lead, Glendwyn, dies protecting Daisy in the burning palace. The rebellion ends in failure, and Ariel is killed by Crown Prince Helios. Thus, Helios and Daisy achieve their happy ending, a happy ending where no one but the main characters survived. Sirius said these days, the relationship between the Duke and the twins has improved, so I should be able to avoid the villainous route. I'm glad I can survive, but it's becoming hard to predict how the story will progress. Will this be enough? I feel a bit uneasy. It must be because the start of the original story is approaching. Today is the monthly tea time with the Duke. This event, which I proposed 9 years ago, Ariel and Trial Ardentine, 14 years old, has continued without fail until now. The Duke said, Ariel, I heard you've already finished learning Charter. Ariel smiled and said yes, it's the language of the kingdom right next to the magic tower. Next, I'd like to learn the language of Rehen, if possible. Ariel thinks Rehen is older sister's mother's homeland. The Duke said, all right, Ariel? He replied, yes. The Duke said, it says here that you broke a porcelain vase while running in the hallway. Be mindful of your behavior. Ariel said yes. The Duke said, still, reaching the rank of sword expert shows your hard work. To befit the Ardentine name, you must reach the pinnacle with your sword. Ariel said yes. HMSWH warehouse, the maid said, time to tidy up Lady Cernia's bed. Huh! A scream! The Duke said, what's with the commotion? The maid said, apologies for interrupting your tea time, but there is a matter that requires your immediate attention. The Duke said, understood. I'll go myself. Cernia said, if it concerns me, I'll come along. The Duke replied, do as you wish. The Duke and Cernia go away, and she thinks this is my room. A cursed doll. This is definitely the event of one of the side stories, the only episode in Shin where Cernia appears. When the twins were about 10 years old, Cernia found a cursed doll in Nanny Byrne's room. Cernia accused the nanny of cursing the twins and had her executed on the spot. Despite the culprit apparently having been revealed, the Duke continued investigating the case's mastermind. While investigating the nanny's room, the Duke clenched his hand. She said, it's not true. It's not me. Cernia shouts, Ariel. Say something. Cernia, smiling, said, ah haha. However, the cursed doll incident occurred when the twins were around 10 years old. Why is it resurfacing now? The Duke said, what happened? One maid said, well, I came in to clean, and when I looked at the bed, another said after finding it, she reported it to me, and I immediately went to inform the Duke. Cernia thinks, what is he doing? The Duke's servant said, your grace. The Duke said, I tried infusing magic into it. It's not a curse. The servant said, not a curse? The Duke said, what is this? This hair color, could it be yours? Cernia said, yes. That earring is also the one I lost before. This time, the cursed doll wasn't found in the nanny's room but in my room, yet the contents inside remain the same. My hair strands and my lost pearl earrings. And while Cernia was jealous of the twins, she wasn't the one behind the curse. A narrative trick? 2 critical pieces of information were deliberately hidden. The novel provided intentionally biased information. The author wanted to deceive the readers. Cernia thinks again, what kind of romance fantasy novel uses a narrative trick? Are you kidding me? The Duke said, do you have any guesses? Cernia thinks the culprit is the nanny. I want to say that, but we still lack evidence. Sirius replied, I don't know. The Duke said, if you don't know, that's fine. Stay with the twins. I'll definitely catch the culprit. Dane, gather everyone in the Duke's household, from the coachman to the knights, everyone. The maid said, my lady, His Grace will definitely find the culprit. Sirius smiled and said, yes, Chelsea. I'm fine. Don't worry. Sirius thought the nanny must have entered my room. There must have been time to place the cursed doll. The last time I saw the nanny was during lunch when she was with Ariel in the dining hall. The tea time with the Duke was at 3 o'clock. The incident happened shortly after the tea time began, so the interval in question is between 1 p.m. and 3:10 p.m. At that time, was that when the cursed doll was placed? Sirius saw the blood and thought, come to think of it, there was no description of this red liquid in the novel. It smells fishy, even if it's animal blood, its color hasn't changed over time. Everyone in the Duke's household will be gathered to find the culprit. To return to the room despite that, it's you, Mrs. Byrne. Why did she come back? If I stick my head out a little more, I'll get caught, I can't see anything. Chelsea said, Mrs. Byrne. The servant Byrne said, weren't you going to call the other maids? What are you doing here? Chelsea smiled and said, I was just tidying up in case the lady got startled. Byrne said, didn't the Duke order that nothing be touched? Chelsea said, I'm aware of that. I was just lightly covering it with a cloth. Was it you, Byrne? I'm giving you a chance to confess. Chelsea said, Duke? The Duke said, the liquid soaking the bed, with its fishy scent, it's easy to mistake it for blood, but this is ray-proof sap. Byrne said, if it's ray-proof, is it the white flower in the greenhouse? The Duke said, yes. When its stem is cut, it secretes a transparent, sticky liquid. Byrne said, that's correct. When mixed with water, the sap turns red, and commoners use it to dye fabrics. The Duke said, this alone isn't enough to identify the culprit, but I noticed a mistake. Before that, Sirius, hidden behind the curtain, listened and thought a mistake. What is it? What mistake? I can't hear it clearly. The Duke said, I told you to stay with the twins. Sirius said, that's because I wanted to help in some way. The Duke said, do you? Sirius said, do you? That's not true. Who in this world wouldn't trust you, Duke? You're famous for handling matters sharper than any sword. Oops. Sirius thought I got so startled, I blurted everything out without thinking. She said, it's a compliment. The Duke said, I see, that's good to hear. Sirius said, so, what's the nanny's mistake? Sirius thought, that's the Duke's signature mischievous smile. This feels unsettling. The Duke said, Sirius? Sirius replied, yes? The Duke said, you're very interested in magic, aren't you? You've been consistently reading books related to it. Sirius said, yes. She thought, once a hardcore fantasy romance fan, always one. Stories about magic and elves feel straight out of a fantasy novel. The Duke said, then let me ask you a question. Magic is invisible, but it exists everywhere. However, it's not evenly distributed. Why is that? Sirius thought, I remember reading it in The Correlation Between Magic and Spirit Arts. Sirius said, because of magic affinity. Everyone has a different level of magic affinity. The Duke replied, correct. And magic affinity doesn't apply only to humans. Around this red liquid, there's a concentration of high-level magic. Sirius thought, that's your mistake, Byrne. Chelsea said, I don't know anything about this. I can't even see magic in the first place. The Duke said, exactly. Because you can't see magic, you made the mistake of mixing ray-proof with hard-gen berries. Byrne said, you added hard-gen berries? Sirius thought, hard-gen? The Duke said, hard-gen berries are poisonous when used alone, causing headaches and fever. You must have added them to recreate the smell of blood and to poison Sirius with it. But when hard-gen berries are mixed with ray-proof sap, they don't become poison, they become medicine. Chelsea said, medicine? The Duke said, it's a medicine that boosts magic power. In very small amounts, it slightly increases magic power, which is why commoners use it as an energy booster. Sirius thought the Duke knows everything, from curses to toxic and medicinal plants. At this point, I'd believe it if someone said he's a magician instead of a sword master. The Duke said, keep your mouth shut. Dust will get in. Sirius replied, yes, sir. Chelsea said with a smile, I see. But Duke, that doesn't prove I'm the culprit. The Duke said, do you think this is all the evidence I have? You still don't understand why I gathered everyone together. The crime of harming a noble is a grave one. This is your last chance to confess, Burn. Burn, your time to confess is running out. The Duke said, is this your apron and gloves? You hid them hurriedly in the wardrobe because the maid cleaning the room arrived earlier than expected. Chelsea said, I don't know anything about this. That apron was stolen recently. Someone must have planted it to frame me. The Duke said, framing, you say? Is that all you have to say? Sirius thought, there's still more evidence, isn't there? Chelsea cried, why? Why on earth? She collapsed and cried, saying, I followed exactly what the wizard told me, so why didn't it work? The Duke said, curses require a price. Because you didn't offer any price, the curse didn't take effect. Chelsea cried sadly, the wizard told me that the liquid and the doll would serve as the price. The Duke said, you should be grateful to the wizard who taught you incorrectly. If you had paid the price for the curse, you would have ended up in the same state as that doll. The Duke drew his sword and started walking forward. Sirius stepped ahead and stopped him, thinking, is he planning to execute her? Sirius said, Duke. The Duke said, what is it? Sirius said, please allow me to decide the nanny's punishment. The Duke said, cursing a noble is a grave crime, but it was only an attempt, wasn't it? Sirius said, I want to hear her reasons before punishing her. Chelsea said, if only Lady Sirius weren't here, my child could have taken her place. Sirius thought, her child? I knew she married into a viscount's family, but Sirius said, I've never seen her visit her child. Chelsea said, because my child was sick, I couldn't afford to rest to pay for the expensive medicine. The Duchess said she was fine with me taking my child here, but the Duke forbade it, saying I couldn't handle raising 4 children on my own. If Lady Sirius weren't here, I could have raised my child here at the Duke's household. Sirius thought, Mom. Chelsea said, it's not a grand reason, but I can understand her love for her child. So that's why she resented Sirius even more. Sirius, who was far more perceptive than I am, must have noticed the subtle malice the nanny held. Perhaps that's why she searched the room beforehand. She must have found the cursed doll before the curse was activated, and that's how the incident unfolded. Sirius said, Mrs. Burn, stand up. She just needed someone to blame for everything, just like the original Sirius, who envied the twins. The nanny also resented Sirius. Sirius said, Mrs. Burn, I hereby dismiss you from your position. Chelsea thought, the twins, Sirius, none of them did anything wrong. Sirius said, I will keep today's events a secret, but you are now banned from working in any noble household. Return to the Viscount's estate and do not appear in social circles again. Instead, for the rest of your life, stay by the side of the child you love. This curse that hurts everyone must come to an end. Chelsea said, my lady, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, my lady. Burn said, our young lady has grown so much. Sirius thought, well, it's not like we were harmed anyway, and we've learned something important, a narrative trick. The original novel couldn't be trusted word for word. The Duke said, this room will be sealed. Sirius said, what? The Duke said, this room at the end of the hallway is too far. I'm planning to move you anyway. Sirius thought, then, please move me to the room next to the twins. The Duke said, if there's any other furniture you want, tell Dane. Sirius said, what I have now is more than enough. The Duke said, even though I've offered you to buy anything. Sirius said, oh, right? Sirius said, was there more evidence proving Mrs. Burn was the culprit? The Duke said, Burn used something that was actually a magic-enhancing medicine, not a curse. Because its effects take place just by being applied, I could see the increased magic surrounding Burn. Sirius said, so you noticed at first glance. She thought, and so, the cursed doll incident came to an end, and the winter at the Duke's estate was passing by. The winter, when the cursed doll incident occurred, has passed, and spring has arrived. Unlike the original Sirius, who passed away at 12, I'm still alive at 17. Sirius Ardentine, 17 years old. Surviving is good, but I'm worried about the upcoming event from the original, the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. At this banquet, Ariel falls in love at first sight with Crown Prince Helios. Sirius said, how can I stop her from falling in love at first sight? I've been consistently bad-mouthing the Crown Prince, though. Ariel said, if you don't like the Crown Prince, I don't like him either. Sirius said, phew, I'm worried. Sirius thinks, no, I believe in you, Ariel. Ariel said, Sirius. Sirius. Ariel said, Sirius, why are you so late? Ariel said, I listened carefully in class so I can come and spend time with you. Ariel said, praise me. Ariel Ardentine, 15 years old. Sirius thinks they're 15, but they still want praise? Ariel said, Sirius, don't get married and stay with me forever instead. Ariel said, no. Sirius will live with me. You go away. Sirius said, we can live together, the three of us, just like we do now. Ariel said, I don't want to live with Ariel forever though. But if Sirius says so, I'll tolerate him. Ariel said, I don't like you either. If Sirius wasn't here, I wouldn't want to be with someone like you for a second. Ariel said, I dislike you even more. Sirius said, that's enough. Do you know how precious family is? You should treasure each other's existence. You two are especially irreplaceable siblings. Ariel said, Sirius, you're my family too. You're the most precious to me. Ariel said, and we've connected by blood, Sirius. Sirius thinks that's not exactly what I meant. I guess they've been worried since I lost my parents and was left alone. Sirius said, I know, I've been worried too. You two are the most precious to me. Should we sit down now? She thinks they're like two cute puppies. Ariel said, I want to wear couple dresses with you to the birthday banquet. Sirius said, about that, I'm not going. Ariel said, what? Why aren't you going with me? In the original, Sirius couldn't go to the birthday banquet. But I can't say that. What should I say? Sirius said, I'm sick. A cold. I'm feeling a bit sick. You two go and have fun. Ariel said, how can we have fun if you're sick? If you aren't going, then I'm not going either. Ariel said, same for me. Ariel said, no. Sirius said, The Duke looks handsome again today. Ariel said, everyone, make sure to attend the birthday banquet. Sirius said, I think I'm coming down with a cold. If she's sick, she shouldn't push herself. Ariel said, we should call the priest. Sirius said, a priest? Not a doctor, but a priest? Do they use divine power for a cold? Sirius said, no, I'll be fine if I rest properly. Then you should get some proper rest and go. Sirius thinks I have no other choice but to use my final card. Usually, a big party requires an invitation. Even within the same family, not everyone gets invited. Thankfully, I'm one of the ones not invited to this banquet. Sirius said, actually, I didn't receive an invitation from the Imperial Palace. Ariel said, Sirius, there's no need to go to that party. She thinks no. It's just that there's no need for me to go to the birthday banquet. Ariel said, those who don't recognize your worth are just ignorant. Don't mind them. He thinks I just don't want to go. Ariel said, how dare they not send an invitation to my sister. Ariel thinks, how dare they. But it's the Imperial family we're talking about. It's impossible to argue now. Duke, please help. Ariel said, it doesn't matter. No one can stop the Ardentine family. Let's go. Sirius said, that man, he's the biggest problem. She thinks, the Emperor is above the Duke, you know. Anyway, now I'm being forced to attend, right? Maid said, wow. It's so pretty, lady, it suits you so well. She thinks it's a bit. Sirius said, it's white and flowing. She thinks like a wedding dress. Chelsea said, this dress was prepared by the Duke. Sirius said, This dress? Duke? She thinks the Duke? Sirius said, are you joking? Chelsea said, no, it's true. The Duke personally chose this dress. Sirius thinks I should thank the Duke later. A voice behind the door said, Sirius, are you done? Sirius, can we come in? Sirius said, yes. Ariel said, Sirius, you look so beautiful. Ariel said she has always been beautiful. Ariel said, well, yes, but seeing her all dressed up like this is a first. The most beautiful person at the banquet will definitely be you, Sirius. Sernia said, really? You two are dazzling as well. Ariel said, I'm glad. I was wondering if you'd think I was pretty. Sernia said, you've always been pretty, haven't you? Ariel said, Sernia, what about me? Sernia said, of course, you're dashing as well. Burns said, ladies, young master, the carriage is ready. Sernia thinks I've constantly been anxious about how to avoid the same fate as in the original. I've loved and cared for the twins with all my heart, hoping they wouldn't end up like in the original. But what if the plot of the original story is an unavoidable fate for the twins? Could I, the living Sernia, become a future obstacle for them? That's why I've never stepped out of the Duke's house until now. But today, I'll step out into the world for the very first time. People are thinking, Duke Ardentine and Lady Sernia are entering. Sernia thinks this attention is overwhelming. Ariel said, stand up straight. There's no one here you need to fear. Sernia thinks, is my trembling that obvious? She said, it's reassuring to be with the Duke. Duke said, but Sernia, how long? People said His Majesty the Emperor and the Crown Prince are entering. The glory of the Empire, descendant of the sun, we greet His Majesty the Emperor. Duke said, lift your heads. Man said, I thank those who gathered to celebrate the Crown Prince's birthday. Let me express my gratitude to all of you. Sernia thinks, wow, he really looks like the principal. So that must be Crown Prince Helios. His silver blonde hair shines brighter than diamonds. His golden eyes sparkle like stars. He's exactly how he's described in the novel, a textbook handsome guy. Duke said, lastly, everyone, enjoy the banquet. Sernia thinks, did our eyes just meet? Ariel said, Sernia. She replied, Ariel? Ariel said, hide behind father. The Crown Prince is still looking for a dance partner since he doesn't have a fiancé yet. Sernia thinks, with so many beauties at the banquet, would the Crown Prince really ask me to dance? You should be more worried. Ariel said, beauty. Sernia asked, really? Ariel said, Sernia, would you like to dance with me? I'm dancing with my sister. Ariel said, what? Are you going to dance with another? Sernia said, stop it, you guys. There are too many people here. Ariel said, what, are you complaining? Even if you are, I won't listen. Sernia said, haha, it's an honor. Please take care of me. Hee hee. Duke said, the Crown Prince has picked his dance partner. Do you want to dance with the Crown Prince? Sernia said, no. Duke said, then, who will you dance with? Ariel thinks here, it's best to go with someone safe. Sernia said, the Duke. You have to choose the most powerful person in the house. Duke said, it's alright. You just need to look at me. Sernia said, yes, Duke. The Duke and Sernia danced. Duke said, Sernia? Sernia said, yes. Duke said, for how long are you going to call me Duke? Sernia thinks this is the first time the Duke is showing his feelings like this. Sernia said, then, Duke asked uncle. She said, uncle? Ah. Uncle. Duke said, I'm sorry, uncle. It's fine. It's uncle now. Sernia thinks, phew, one song's over. Sernia said, he seems happy, tch. Ariel said, sister. I won the rock paper scissors. I'm your next partner. Sernia said, so you decided with rock paper scissors? But who's going to lead? Ariel smiled, hee hee. Sernia and Ariel danced, and she thinks, as expected, the future socialite queen. Ariel said, are you calm now? Sernia said, I saw you step on the Duke's feet earlier. Ariel said, you step on people's feet whenever you're nervous. I actually expected that. Sernia said, what? Then you should have stopped me. Ariel said, I definitely tried. I suggested the first dance, but it was you who chose it. I would have been bored to death if I hadn't come with you. She said, let's make lots of friends while we're at it. Ariel replied, I only need you, sister. Sernia said, Ariel, I want you to see the world and meet many people. Ariel said, I still want to stay with you, sister. Sernia closed her in and said, sure. I'm the place you can always come back to. I'll always be here. All right. That's a promise. Ariel said, sister. This time, with me. She said 3 songs in a row is too much. She needs to rest now. Helios said, you're the hidden treasure of the Duke's family. Helios Islanda, 15 years old, first prince. Sirius said, glory of the empire, the crown prince, descendant of the sun. Prince Helios said, are you young Master Ariel, the next head of the Argentine family? It's a pleasure to meet you. Ariel said, yes. Helios said, is this your twin sister, Lady Ariel? Ariel said, yes. Helios said, Lady Sirius, would you dance a song with me? Sirius thinks, now that I think about it, Helios seemed to find palace life boring. He seemed to enjoy interesting things or events that looked fun. Ariel said, I'm sorry, but my sister already promised to dance with me. Helios said, I didn't ask the young master. Ariel's right. Sirius said, I'm sorry, but we made this promise a week ago. I hope the crown prince will understand. I'm worried about Ariel. Ariel said, she'll manage. Ariel said, sister, I'll keep a low profile so the crown prince doesn't notice me. Sirius said, all right. I'll walk around for a bit and find Ariel. Servant said, are you looking for Lady Ariel? She just went out to the garden. Sirius said, thank you. Time has passed so quickly. Sirius said, Ariel, she thinks this dress is too heavy. I can't swim. Am I going to drown in this life too? Sirius said, huff, huff. Oh, huh? She thinks it's a shallow pond? How embarrassing. Sirius said, thank you very much. Black. A color that absolutely couldn't exist in a human from this world. A color born from bad omens and calamity. Sirius? The sub-male lead of the original novel, and Helios' half-brother. He inherited the curse the Empress placed upon the concubine, leaving him unable to feel emotions. A tragic prince. Sirius shouts, excuse me. If you're going to save someone, do it all the way. Sirius said, saved you? It wasn't even deep enough to drown in. Sirius said, the dress was heavy. If you hadn't pulled me out, I would have died. Sirius said, why did I save you? Sirius said, I know. Achoo. So, could you help me? Sirius pulled her up by the hand. Sirius said, thank you. Sirius said, you owe me now, unless you were planning on pretending that nothing happened. Sirius thinks, not a favor, but a debt? Seriously? Sirius said, you saved my life, it's only right I repay you. Sirius said, then, repay me with something I want. Sirius thinks, what could that be? Then, what do you want? Sirius said, this way. Ariel, and Ariel said, sister. Sister. Duke said, are you okay? I heard you fell into the pond. Sirius said, yes, sir, she thinks so, we haven't introduced ourselves yet. Right. Sirius said, this gentleman saved me. Sirius said, glory of the empire, descendant of the sun, Prince Sirius, I greet you. Duke said, thank you for helping Sirius. I'll make an official visit to the palace to properly thank you later. Forgive me, but we must leave now since my niece might catch a cold. Sirius said, uncle, I can walk on my own. Ariel said, are you alright, sister? Ariel said, are you really okay? Ariel said, I was so shocked. Lady Canarian suddenly ran over, saying you fell into the pond. Sirius thinks, Lady Canarian? Then the one who spoke to me back there was Lady Canarian? Aside from that, she said, what's wrong? Sirius said, it's nothing. Sirius thinks, I want to ask, were you worried I might have been hurt? Is what I want to say. I just meant to watch. It was shallow enough for her to stand up on her own. But somehow, my thoughts didn't align with my actions, and my hand had already reached out to her. Did I just save someone? Sirius thinks, why did I save you? The curse hasn't been lifted, so why? Her silver-gray eyes shimmered under the moonlight. Sirius said, could you help me? Sirius thinks, her soft voice, free of fear or hesitation. I don't know why, but those silver-gray eyes, Sirius said this way. She thinks I wanted them to look at me. Ariel, and Ariel said, sister. Sister. She thinks again I wanted them to look only at me. After the birthday banquet ended peacefully, the Duke's family began returning to their normal lives, except for the visit of an unexpected guest. Canarian Jfine, 15 years old, daughter of the Jfine Count family. According to the notes, she thinks, in other words, Ariel's right hand and villainous. Sirius said, Lady Canarian, what brings you to Argentine? Sirius thinks, seriously, What could this villainous supporting character want with me? Canarine said I came to apologize for what happened at the birthday banquet. She thinks that yellow dress. So, it was you, Canarine, who pushed me into the pond. Sirius thinks but still, I didn't expect her to come and apologize directly like this. Canarine said I'm sorry, Lady Sirius. That's because I was jealous of you. Sirius said jealous? But I'm not even the direct line of the Duke's family. There's nothing about me that you should envy. Canarine said it's family's love you've got. Something I never had in my entire life. I am really jealous of you, Sirius. Ariel said Sirius, who can laugh even after stepping on the Duke's foot. She thinks first wave of embarrassment. Canarine said that's why. It was just meant to be a surprise in the shallow pond. Huh? Oh my. Sirius is, someone please help. I thought you could stand up right away. She thinks stepped on Duke's foot plus can't stand up in a shallow pond. Second wave of embarrassment. Canarine cried I'm so sorry. The narrator said even before being reincarnated into the world of the novel, there were many children who did cruel things just for fun. Sirius thinks Canarine may not have done the right thing, but at least she has the decency to apologize in person. Sirius said Canarine, it's okay. Canarine said that day, I also got scolded by my father. I'm a mere tool, a tool meant to help my family achieve success. And yet, they see the money spent on me as a waste. That's why, to be genuinely loved by your family, and can laugh even when you make mistakes. I really envied you, Sirius. The narrator said perhaps the jealousy that Canarine felt in the original story was because she wanted to prove her worth to her family. She was just a young child, desperately struggling to survive and be loved. Sirius said I hope that my forgiveness, even if just a little, can bring her some comfort. Ariel shouted Sirius. I heard Lady Canarine came to apologize, but I'm still mad at her. Sirius thinks thank goodness. Before Ariel could cause any trouble, Canarine came to confess. After realizing Canarine pushed me, it felt like she was up to something. But even today, a letter arrived from the young lady you know? Ariel said don't reply to it. Don't just brush it aside with a laugh. Sirius said it's not working. Canarine handed something over and said oh, a letter of acceptance from the academy. Sirius looked and said so, it's time for you to enter the academy. Ariel said it'd be nice if you could go too. Sirius said I already gave up on enrolling. She thinks last year, I was offered admission too, but I turned it down. It's not that I don't want to go, but Daisy, the main protagonist, will be there at the academy too. Canarine said oh, how pretty Daisy. Sirius thinks the academy is only for 2 years. If I enroll, I'll have to graduate by the time the twins start. Sirius said if I go to the academy, it'll waste so much time. I like to spend time with you guys rather than go to the academy. She thinks I really don't feel like going back to school now. Canarine said I know it's childish, but I just want to be with Sirius more. Mrs. Burns said Miss Sirius, the Duke is looking for you. The Duke said I'm going to the palace tomorrow. Sirius thinks tomorrow. I'm going to the palace to thank them for what happened before. You're going too, right? Is how the Duke speaks. Sirius said I'll come along. The Duke replied do as you please. Sirius thinks why is he looking at me like that? The Duke asked do you have anything more to say? Sirius said do I need to buy juice and bring it to properly greet someone? The Duke replied since they saved your life, we should repay them with something of equal value. Sirius exclaimed the value of a life? The Duke said close your mouth. Dust will fill it. Sirius said okay. Then, is it alright if I personally prepare something for Prince Sirius? The Duke said sure, since I'll prepare the offering for His Majesty, you can prepare the gift for the prince. Sirius said understood. Can Ariel come along too? She thinks I see, so Ariel will join us. Even if it's not allowed, she'll probably still show up. Alright. Then I'll head out first. Sirius thinks actually, I've already decided on what to give to Sirius. Sirius clenched something and said this. This will help with Sirius's curse. A spirit stone imbued with the power of the water spirit. The shimmering spiritual energy within the stone resembles the color of Daisy's eyes. Sirius's curse, which was mediated through spirits, weakened in places where the presence of spiritual energy was strong. It was only natural that Sirius was drawn to Daisy, who was loved by the spirits. Besides, wasn't it Daisy's spirit friend, Elisa, who revealed the truth about the curse? As someone with no connection to spirits, the only thing I could do was offer a spirit stone as a temporary measure. Cernia thinks if I go to the Imperial Palace to deliver the spirit stone, I might run into the Empress. If it's the Empress, the one who cursed the Emperor's other pregnant wife, tainting even Sirius with the curse, and also taught the curse to Ariel, who was blinded by jealousy. Come to think of it, the final villain is the Empress, isn't she? Firstly, let's avoid the Empress as much as possible. Now, aside from the twins, the original characters will have no place in my life. For a life without turbulence. For an easy life. Cernia said, Glory of the Empire, descendants of the sun. Greetings, Your Majesty the Emperor. The Emperor said it seems that all of the Duke's children are clever. The Empire's future is bright. The Duke handed over the box and said thank you. Here is a token of gratitude. The Emperor opened the box and said, Oh, necklaces, then clenched his hand and said, Is this Triska's tears? A treasure infused with the energy of the Fire Spirit King. Ah, that's right, since you're here, I'd like just the two of us to talk, if that's alright. That way it won't be a hassle next time we meet. The Duke replied, All right. Cernia thinks he looks quite annoyed. I should be careful. She said, Ariel. Ariel. Then, we will leave first. Chelsea said I will guide you to Prince Sirius's palace. Cernia said Uncle seemed really annoyed. I hope he's calmed down by the time we get on the carriage. Ariel said he probably won't say much to us, but Ariel might end up getting dragged to the training grounds. Cernia thinks Ariel, you don't know, but when the Duke gets annoyed, it bothers me too sometimes. Silent tea time. Cernia said it feels like we've been walking for a long time. Chelsea said we've come this far, it's only a bit further ahead. She thinks my garbage stamina. I still have half of the day to go. Cernia said I go for walks often, but why is stamina still the same? Ariel said who is it? Help. Please help me. Ariel said as Servia. Cernia said are you alright? As she walked toward Ariel, she found an injured girl sitting on the ground, and the girl said, Oh, it's bleeding. Cernia said it might hurt, but please be patient. She thinks it's dyeing the handkerchief. Why is there so much? Ariel said, Cernia, I told the maid to inform them that a young lady is injured. If you wait a little, a knight or a doctor will come. Cernia said, what a relief. You must have been shocked. Oh, come to think of it, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Cernia Ardentine. The girl thinks I heard today that the Duke of Ardentine will have an audience with His Majesty the Emperor. I'm not sure why these people are here, but they're so kind. The girl said thank you for your help, Lady Cernia. Cernia said then, what is your name? The girl replied I'm Bella. I'm Bella Kylan. My name is Bella Kaylin. Cernia said yes, Lady Bella. Ariel said sister, at least put a handkerchief down before you sit. Cernia said but I don't have a handkerchief. Ariel said use mine. Cernia thinks again, are they fighting again? Cernia said fine. I'll use both. Lady Bella. Bella said yes. Me? Cernia said I'll wrap one of the handkerchiefs around the injured area. With the remaining handkerchief, I'll wrap the energy stone I brought today. Just for a moment. If you place it over your eyes, Cernia said there, does it feel cool? Your eyes have been red since earlier. Bella said that's refreshing. She thinks His Highness the Crown Prince once found me like this too, when I had fallen down. Helios said Bella. There you are. Are you alright? She thinks the Crown Prince was like the prince from my fairy tale. Since I had held on to this love for so long, I recognized it immediately, that Helios had taken an interest in Ardentine. At the birthday banquet, the two of them looked so perfect together that I could understand why His Highness was interested. I told myself not to be greedy and promised to be satisfied just by being by Helios's side. Even as I tried to soothe my heart, I couldn't help but feel uneasy about His Highness taking an interest in the Ardentine ducal house. It's strange. The person I didn't want to see is right in front of me, and yet I don't hate it. It feels comforting. Senia said, come to think of it, Ariel and Ariel, aren't you going to introduce yourselves? Ariel said, we already greeted each other at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. Ariel said, you weren't there, were you, sister? Senia thinks that's because I was drowning at the time. Senia smiled, ha ha ha. Bella said, I was truly impressed by Lady Ariel's dancing. You and Helios looked good together, Senia said. Ariel, you danced with the Crown Prince? Ariel said, yes, His Majesty the Emperor instructed it, so we danced together. Senia thinks in the original novel's side story, it never mentioned that they danced together. The cursed doll incident happened, and I ended up attending the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. Do events from the original story always have to repeat themselves? Helios thinks Belle. Bella said, brother. Kylan said, are you hurt badly? Bella said, my leg is a little. Kylan said, your leg? Get on my back. Kylan lifted his waist and said, thank you for helping Bella. I'm late in introducing myself. I am Grand One Kylan, Marquis Kylan's household, 15 years old. Kylan said I should also express my gratitude. Helios Aslanda, Crown Prince, 15 years old. Bella is like my own little sister. Glory of the Empire, descendant of the sun. Cernia said, it is an honor to meet you, Crown Prince Helios. Helios said, we meet again, Lady Cernia. Ariel said, stop staring at her. You'll wear out my sister's face. Cernia replied, Cernia thinks no, Ariel. My face is thicker than iron. Helios said, you think just because the Crown Prince, look at her, her face will wear out. Ariel said, yes. It will. I won't allow it. Helios said, and why should I need your permission? Cernia said, Ariel. Stop, Ariel. Ariel said, understood, sister. And sister says she doesn't want to see Prince Helios's face. Cernia said, that's not it. That's not what I meant. Cernia said, really? Even you, Ariel? Bella said, my apologies. Lady Cernia is just too adorable. I couldn't help but laugh. Helios smiled and said, indeed, Lady Cernia is quite cute. Cernia said, with everyone complimenting me like this, I don't know where to put myself. In any case, I must be on my way to meet Prince Sirius, so I will take my leave. Cernia thinks this is bad. Being surrounded by these twins and having Helios teasing me is the worst. I should retreat. Helios said, what a shame. I look forward to seeing you again. She replied, no, thanks. Ariel thinks, is this really the Imperial Prince's palace? It looks so neglected from the outside. She said, but the inside is neat though. You must have had a hard time coming all this way. I'm Sirius Aslanda. Sirius Aslanda, 15th Prince of the Empire. Cernia thinks, emotionless smile and mechanical gestures. This is exactly how Sirius was in the original story I know. Cernia said, it was a little strange when we first met. Cernia said, I wanted to express my gratitude as soon as possible, so I apologize for coming so suddenly. Sirius said, it's alright. I wanted to see Lady Cernia as well. Cernia thinks that's strange. That's strange. The prince's palace looks like it was hastily tidied up inside. Even the attendants don't seem like permanent staff. Cernia said, the tea has a nice fragrance. Sirius said, does it? She thinks, don't tell me. You don't even have tea time? Cernia said, please try my cake as well. Sirius said, it's a bit too sweet for my taste. I don't usually eat sweet things. Cernia thinks, my goodness, even tea and cake are unfamiliar to him? She said, this is serious. Cernia thinks, I wish I could take him away from the Empress and bring him to the duchy. Cernia said, but he's not a puppy, so there's no way I could take him so easily. Sirius said, puppy? Cernia said, no, I just suddenly wanted to raise a puppy. Sirius said, so you like dogs? Cernia said, huh? Well, I suppose I do. Prince Sirius said, I see. Ariel said, it seems like someone teleported. Cernia said, through the Imperial Palace barrier? Cernia thinks, so he's a genius capable of breaking through the Imperial Palace barrier? Cernia said, that is. Sirius said, since you said you wanted to raise a puppy. Cernia said, I appreciate the thought, but I still need the Duke's permission, so I can't just take it right away. He thinks, are you abandoning this child? Is this all just an act? Those ears. Sirius said then, if I have no choice, Sirius, thank you for last time. This is my gift in return. Sirius said thank you. I will keep and cherish it well. She thinks, huh? Just now, did something glow? Was it just my imagination? Ariel said the gift we're giving you is a sword. Sirius thinks the twins also had gifts, so we decided to come together. She thinks Helios said thank you. Take it with you. Sirius thinks it must be a good sword, yet he didn't even unwrap it. Sirius said then, we should be going now. Sirius said already leaving? Sirius thinks it must be my imagination that Sirius looks disappointed, right? His acting deserves a Best Actor award. It really does. Sirius said well then, see you next time. Sirius said next time. Next, Sirius said Prince Sirius gave this to me. Duke said don't tell me, you're going to keep it? Sirius said it would be cruel to abandon it. He replied I forbid it. Sirius thinks can't we just keep it? Please? Sirius said uncle. Duke said fine, but it's not allowed in your room. Sirius replied yes. I'll only keep it in the yard. Uncle, thank you so much. That's great. She hugged the dog. What should we name it? Ariel said since it's black, how about black iron? How about ink? Ariel said who names a dog black iron? Ariel said I think ink seems more weird. Sirius said how about night? Since it's black, like the night sky. Ariel said that's cute. Night? Ariel said your naming sense isn't that great either, sister. Ariel kicked his foot hard and said if you like it, then let's go with that. Sirius said night, your name is now Night. Dog woof. She thinks with this pup around, even when the twins go to the academy, it won't feel as lonely. It all started with a letter from Jfine. Sirius writes in this letter, my father found out the truth. He insists that Duke Condell must meet you, Lady Sirius. I think my father wants to tie you down. Our mansion is much more modest compared to the Duke's residence where you live. I have been delaying my father's request because I don't want to trouble you, but recently, my father has become very firm about it, so I had no choice but to send this invitation. He might end up offending you, Lady Sirius. If a formal invitation arrives, please reject it. Waiting for your reply, Canary Germain. She thinks along with a lengthy letter came an invitation. Now, I'm heading to the Jfine Count's estate. The Jfine Count's estate, originally a Viscount family, but 3 generations ago, a gold mine was discovered in their territory, elevating them to a count's house. Known for their excessive vanity and often looking down on poor nobles, their reputation among aristocrats is not great. All this because of Canary, the most beautiful woman in the world. After her apology last time, Canary has been sending me letters every week. Through our exchanges, we became friends. When the Count learned about our relationship, he invited me to his mansion. Canary did ask me to refuse the invitation. But still, does Canary think of me as a friend too? But I mean, she's my first friend. A man said please come in, Lady Sirius. We've been expecting you. She replied it is an honor to meet you. I am Sirius Ardentine. The Count said where are the others? Did you come alone? Sirius replied yes, I came alone, Count. Would you like to continue our conversation inside? The Count replied welcome. Canary is waiting inside, so please go in. A man bowed and said I'll guide you to Lady Canary's room. She thinks so the Count's true target was Ariel. Using Canary, he must be trying to form an alliance with the Duke's house through marriage. Too bad. I came alone today. The man said this way, please. Sirius thinks there's a lot of stuff, but it's not pretty. It's all over the place. So messy. The man announced my lady. I have brought Lady Sirius. Canary said Sirius, why are you here? I told you to refuse, didn't I? Did my father say anything to you? Sirius replied no, he didn't say much. Canary said my father told me to wait in my room, so I couldn't come out to greet you. I'm sorry. Sirius replied it's okay. Seeing you again after so long, I feel so happy. Canarian said, I also feel happy to see you, Cernia. Cernia thinks, but looking at Canarian's room, it's so simple, unlike the reception room. The Jfine Count, he only decorates the areas that others can see. Cernia said, shall we go for a walk outside? Canarian said, well, my father doesn't like it when I wander around the house. I'm sorry. Cernia thinks, a father who dislikes seeing his daughter walk around her own home? Cernia said, then, let's just chat in the room. Canarian said, sounds good. I also prepared your favorite Mont Blanc cake. Since you were coming today, I asked the chef to make the best Mont Blanc and tea. Cernia said, it's delicious. Canarian said, really? I'm so relieved. Next week marks the end of the year. Have you finished preparing for the National Foundation Festival? Cernia replied, I went to the tailor's last week with the twins. Canarian said, Cernia, you'd look stunning in any dress. Cernia thinks this will be my first festival with a friend. Cernia replied, what about your dress, Canarian? Canarian said, I have no idea what I'll be wearing. My father always picks the most expensive dress from his tailor. Cernia thinks a men's tailor for a nobleman choosing his daughter's dress without even checking the design, just picking the most expensive one? He doesn't want to spend time on it but still wants to. Canarian said, is something bothering you? Cernia replied, and she thinks it's you I'm worried about. But I can't say that. Cernia said, the twins will be entering the academy soon. I'm worried about how they'll do. Canarian said, I see. If it's them, Cernia, you don't have to worry. I'm sure they'll do just fine. It might sound sudden, but I'm glad I went to the Duke's house to apologize. I never imagined I could become friends with you, Cernia. And Cernia? Cernia replied, yes? What is it? Could you call me by my nickname? Canarian said, my mother used to call me Kana. It's the name of a small yellow flower that blooms together. My mother passed away 5 years ago after giving birth to my sibling. She came from a count's family but was poor. My father always said I should have married someone of higher status. He repeated that to me over and over. After my mother passed, no one has ever called me by my nickname again. Close friends call each other by their nicknames, don't they? And you're my first friend, Cernia. If you don't mind, can you call me Kana? Cernia replied, of course. You're my first friend too, Canarian. No, I mean Kana. From now on, I'll call you that. So, please smile, Kana. Canarian said, thank you, Cernia. If you don't mind, may I give you a nickname? Cernia said, a nickname for me? Canarian said, yes. I've been thinking about one for a while. How about Nia? My mother used to read to me. It's the name of a fairy from an old story. Cernia thinks mischievous fairy, but one that loves and protects people. Canarian said, when I see you, Nia, I can't help but think of that fairy from the story. Cernia said, a fairy? Cernia thinks I think Canarian is more like a fairy than I am. She's small and cute. Cernia said, if you're curious, I can lend you the book. Since this book holds precious memories with your mother, I'll read it carefully and return it to you. A man said, my lady, the carriage from the Duke's house has arrived. Cernia said, I guess I have to go now. Then, Kana, I'll see you at the founding festival. Canarian said, travel safely, Nia. And write to me. Cernia thinks a nickname, Nia, someday, Canarian too will have someone who calls her by a warm nickname. Until then, I want to be Canarian's reliable friend. When I get home, I should come up with nicknames for the twins too. After visiting the Jfine household, peaceful days followed. An uneventful daily life. Time flowed gently. Sirius, said Cernia. Cernia thinks a deep, pleasant voice. It's too vivid to be a dream, a man's voice. Besides Ariel and the Duke, the only men in this house are the servants. But at this hour, no one should be upstairs. Someone broke through the Duke's magical barrier? An assassin? Again a voice, Cernia. Sirius said, I'm over here. Cernia woke up and saw the window. Sirius said, it's been a while, Cernia. Cernia thinks, why is Sirius here? Cernia said, why is Sirius here? Sirius said, well, I was anxious, since, next time, never came. Cernia thinks next time? Sirius said more importantly, it's cold. Here, take this. Cernia said thank you. Wait, no. How did you even get into the Duke's estate? Dog voice woof. Cernia said bam, you're supposed to be in the yard. How did you get to the second floor? Sirius said you named him Bam? Cernia thinks Sirius laughed. Is he pretending to be relaxed to lower my guard? Sirius said there's no need to be wary. That little one and I are connected by magic. That's how I was able to bypass the Duke's barrier. Ariel thinks I knew it. That's why the Duke. Sirius said, but you're forbidden from entering my room. Cernia said, if you're magically linked to Bam, do you also share senses with him? Like if I pet him, does he feel it? Sirius said, I haven't tried that, but it's possible. Do you want to test it? Cernia said no. Sirius said, just knowing you guys are connected is already overwhelming. Sure. I was just joking. If Cernia doesn't like it, I won't do it. Cernia thinks when Sirius jokes, it always sounds serious. Cernia said the wind is getting colder. Let's go inside for now. Sirius said, are you sure I can enter? Cernia said, talking like this doesn't seem like it'll end anytime soon. Let's sit and talk, shall we? Cernia said, I don't think our conversation is going to end soon. Shall we sit down and talk? Then, was that whisper I heard earlier also from you, Prince Sirius? Sirius said, that's right. It's a sound transmission spell. No one besides you can hear it. Cernia said, as I thought. Then, what did you mean by next? Didn't you make a promise last time? Let's meet next time. Cernia said, you're right. It's already been half a year. I didn't expect you to be waiting for me. Sirius said, then, was that a lie? Cernia replied, no. It was just a greeting. Besides, we met today, anyway. Sirius said, if I hadn't come to see you, I guess we couldn't meet forever. Cernia smiled and said, haha, we would have met eventually, wouldn't we? At the founding festival, or the academy entrance ceremony. Cernia thinks the silence is heavy. Sirius said, I don't want to only see you on public events, Lady Cernia. But it seems like that's not the case for you. Cernia thinks, what was that? Just now, there was a red aura. Cernia said, no, that's not it, if you were startled. Sirius said you were startled. Cernia thinks, fine, since it's come to this, let me explain everything from the start. Cernia said, Prince Sirius, if you want to meet someone, you should make an appointment beforehand. The simplest way is to send a letter. Sirius said, an appointment. Letter. Cernia thinks I felt this the last time as well, but Sirius wasn't properly cared for. He doesn't even know basic etiquette. She said he must have struggled. She thinks plus, because of the original storyline, my perspective was narrow, but for Sirius, he is feeling emotions right now, and that emotion is curiosity. In the original storyline, a feeling such as love, he will experience that through Daisy. I don't think our conversation is going to end soon. Sirius said yes, to send a letter, you need to write the place and time. It's even better if you include a reason. The duchy has a designated place to receive letters, so you can give it to a servant. Alright, Sirius Palace didn't seem to have any servants. Cernia said, if you want to send a letter to me, you can ask Prince Helios to deliver it. Sirius said, I don't want him to know. Cernia said, then, how about using magic? Wouldn't that work? Sirius said, that will be an easy way. Sirius said, right? But Lady Cernia, aren't you being too defenseless? A man visits you in the middle of the night, and instead of sending him away, you invite him into your room. Do you understand what that could mean? Sirius said, your purple hair and silver gray eyes. Every part of you tempts me. I told you, didn't I? You're far too defenseless. Inviting a man into your room at night dressed in nothing but thin sleepwear, this is dangerous. Even if I try to resist, I waver. Cernia said, absolutely not. She shouts way on. Sirius said, I'm sorry. I was swayed by your scent and lost control for a moment. Cernia said, no matter what, you're the prince. There are things you must keep in mind. Sirius said, apologize. Such actions require the other person's consent. Besides, you haven't even had your coming-of-age ceremony yet. Sirius said you're right. Sernia thinks is he being sincere, or is he acting? Sirius said from now on, I will never touch Lady Sernia without permission. I promise. Until I become an adult, and only with your consent. Sernia said you must keep that promise. Even if you're an adult, it is not okay if the other person is still a minor. Doing it one-sidedly is a crime. Sernia thinks later, I need to teach him the difference between ask and command. Sirius said then, I'll take my leave. Sernia said, are you leaving? Sirius said, Lady Sernia, may I kiss the back of your hand? Sernia said, okay. The kiss lasted too long. It reminded me of how Sirius almost kissed me earlier. Sirius said, next time I come to see you, I'll send a letter first. Sernia said, okay, I'll be waiting. She thinks then, I'll see you at the founding festival. Chin? His hair and eyes, Sirius said just now, the color changed, didn't it? Ariel said, sister, I'm here. Sernia replied, act. She thinks right. The clothes Sirius left behind. If she finds out we met at night, it'll be a disaster. Sernia said, well, what brings you here? Ariel said, as expected, I also want to follow you. Sernia thinks no wonder they're father and daughter. A style of speaking that cuts straight to the important part. Ariel's style of speaking is gradually resembling uncle's. Sernia said, in 2 days, instead of going with uncle to the pre-welcome event, Ariel and I will be going together. You want to attend Kylan's tea party, right? Why? Ariel said, I don't trust Ariel enough to leave you with him. Sernia said, Ariel, you said you wanted to go to the welcome party. I'd be glad if you don't give up on what you want just because of me. Ariel said, Lady Ariel, the Duke is waiting for you. Sernia said, enjoy the welcome party. Ariel said, you too enjoy the event. Sernia said, okay, please tell me all about the party later at dinner. I look forward to hearing that. Chelsea said, Miss Sernia will help you get ready. Sernia thinks she wants to follow me instead of going to the party. She really wants to go. Aren't the kids being too dependent on me? If the twins go to academy, they'll be separated from me. I need to protect them for a little longer. I didn't expect to meet Bella again here. Bella said, Lady Sernia, I've been waiting for you. Sernia said, thank you for inviting us to today's party, Lady Bella. No, it's my honor to have you two with us. Sernia thinks there are so many desserts. Bella said, Lady Sernia. Kalian said, thank you for helping Bella last time. Sernia thinks Grendwin. Sernia said, no, it's fine. It's the right thing to do. I'm glad to hear that Lady Bella is safe. Kalian said, I won't forget this kindness. I plan to give a gift, but I can't think of anything that can't be obtained from the Duke's family. It seems I can't repay you with anything material. Instead, if you need any help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Sernia thinks I don't want to make you repay the debt like Sirius did. Sernia said, I didn't do it with the intention of receiving anything in return. It's okay. Kalian said, no, please don't hesitate to tell me. Sernia said, alright, I will. By the way, Lady Bella looks like an angel today. Bella was always looking like an angel. She thinks with her fair and translucent skin, flowing blonde hair, eyes bluer than the sky. Her heart is so pure, it feels like an angel has descended to earth. Sernia thinks, come to think of it, this guy has a sister complex. Kalian said Bella's dazzling blonde hair is. Sernia thinks this is something I never saw after he met Daisy in the original story. Kalian said it's as beautiful as something a craftsman would create, carefully pulling each thread with gold. She thinks so, this is the kind of older brother you've been all along. Sernia said, and those eyes are like aquamarines, carefully crafted by a craftsman, right? Kylan smiled and said, that's right. So, you had the same thought as mine. Bella tugged his sleeve and said, brother, you should drink the tea before it gets cold. And it's rude to keep talking without a break like that to Lady Sernia. Kylan said, oh ouch, Belle. You don't have to feel embarrassed. Sernia said, because I too, whenever I see Lady Bella, have the same thought as Lord Grendwin. Kylan said, as expected, Lady Sernia has a keen eye for these things. Sernia said, Ariel, are you really alone eating like that? How petty. You should greet Lord Grendwin. Ariel said long time no see. Kylan said long time no see. She thinks that's it? Bella said every time I went to the palace with my brother, I would pass the Duke's household and think of you, Lady Cernia. Can I call you sister? Cernia said of course. Helios said then, I want to call you sister as well. You can call me, Rent, as well sister. Cernia thinks it's a bit creepy that a big guy is calling me sister. Ariel said the one who can call her sister is only me. Kylan said since we're the same age, I'll speak more casually. I look forward to meeting you at the founding festival, sister. Ariel said I said stop calling her sister. Cernia said you two got along well, huh? Cernia thinks perhaps these two might end up being close friends. Bella's first friend, Cernia. Grendwin's friend, Ariel. Without Daisy appearing, a lot of things are starting to change from the original story. You made a new sibling while I was gone. Cernia spent the whole evening suffering from the twins' jealousy. If this goes on, I might end up growing fond of the Kylan siblings. Cernia thinks the Islanda Empire, which has lasted for 1,000 years, marks the new year from the founding day. That's why today is both January 1st and the day of the founding festival. A man said, Miss, take a look here before you leave. Cernia thinks you can feel the excitement in the air. Try the rare fruit that came from the east. With the week-long founding festival coming up. Actually, I have something more important to do than attend the festival, so I secretly left before the Imperial event. The founding festival is the perfect opportunity to return Sirius clothes. But if I take them out like this, I'm afraid that Uncle might get suspicious. Cernia said, what's that? So, the plan I came up with is, I'm going to buy a little accessory as a gift for canarying. I will wrap it in a big gift box along with some snacks. I will wrap Sirius clothes as well and take them to the founding festival party. By the way, I wonder if orange would look good on canarying. A dog barked, woof woof. Woof. Cernia said, why are you barking like that? Helios said, Lady Cernia? Cernia said, see Crown Prince? What is the person supposed to be preparing for the founding event doing here? Helios said, looking after the people is part of the Imperial family's responsibilities. But I went through all the trouble of disguising myself as a commoner with magic, so calling me that is a bit problematic. Just call me Leo. Cernia said, I see. I'm busy, so I'll leave first. Helios said, can I come with you? Cernia said, I'm guessing you won't be interested in shopping for women's accessories. Well then, enjoy looking around. By now, there's no way he can keep up, right? Helios said, pfft. The dog barked, woof woof woof. Helios said, for some reason, since you were trying to run away, I felt like I wanted to catch you. I'm sorry if I made things hard for you. Cernia thinks things that he likes are interesting things and amazing things, and the one who dislikes him, I wonder if it's because he grew up in the palace, surrounded by people who flatter him. He showed interest in the person who doesn't like him, and now I think I may have dealt with it poorly. Since I'm just an extra who only appears in the side stories, I never imagined I'd have anything to do with the Crown Prince. Helios said, are you ignoring me now? Cernia said, as it, I don't understand why Sir Leo is here, so I'm thinking about that briefly. Helios said, using, Sir, makes it clear I'm not a commoner. Lady Cernia really has no sense of adaptability. Cernia thinks, calm down. Getting mad won't do anything, it'll just entertain him. Helios said then, who's the gift for? Cernia said, a friend. The twins are sticking to you day and night, but you have made friends? Alai said, yes. Helios said, I apologize if I made you feel sour. Cernia said, thank you? Helios said, you don't really look thankful. Cernia said, I'm telling the truth. If you didn't catch me, both Bam and I would have gotten hurt. Helios said, thank you very much. So, Lady Cernia is really honest. That's why it's more interesting. There's a stall over here. Helios said, what do you think of this? For something sold by a street vendor, it has really nice gems embedded in it. Cernia said, unfortunately, this isn't the color I'm looking for. I'm looking for red or orange. But if it's your friend, she's probably a noble young lady. Is it alright to buy something from a street vendor like this? Because it's a gift from me, I'm sure she'll be happy. Helios said, I'm jealous that you have a friend like that. Sirius said, but Leo, you also have a friend like that too, right? Helios said, I think Ren is my friend. But does he think of me the same? In the original story, she thinks since Grendwin genuinely thought of Helios as a friend, he gave up on Daisy. However, in reality, Helios can't receive Grendwin's true emotions. Unlike in the story, even if they cherish each other, there's no way their feelings will naturally reach each other in reality. Sirius said, ask him directly. If you don't say it, it won't get through. Helios said, you're making it sound so easy. Sirius said, nothing's easy, you know. I, too, had someone who was difficult. So, Helios, try gathering some courage and approach him. Perhaps he feels the same way as you. Helios said, you are really weird. Sirius replied, thank you, Prince Helios. Helios said, it's not a compliment. And call me Leo. Helios said, give me your hand. I found it tucked away in the corner. Helios said, I was looking for something like this. Thank you. Helios said, if you're grateful, grant me a favor next time. Sirius said, since I saved you, you owe me now. Sirius thinks this situation is the same as Sirius. She said, as expected, is it because of their siblings? Sirius said, a favor? She thinks that smile. Why do I feel uneasy? Chelsea said, my lady, there's barely enough time to prepare for the founding ceremony, yet you went out alone again. If the Duke finds out, it'll be a disaster. Sirius said, sorry, Chelsea. Thank you. I'll get ready to head out right away. Chelsea said, what color of jewelry would you like? I'll bring the dress. Sirius said, the dress Ariel ordered, isn't it too extravagant? Chelsea said, not at all. It suits you perfectly, my lady. Ariel said, really? Thank you. Chelsea said, today, Our Lady will shine the brightest. Have a great time. Okay, I'll be back. Sirius said, this is a gift I prepared for Lady Canary. A Duke said, have you gotten close enough to give her a gift? Sirius said, huh? Yes, of course. Kana is my first friend, after all. Sirius thinks he has no idea there's serious clothing inside, does he? Did he notice? I have no idea what he's thinking, Ariel said, sister. You didn't forget that the first dance was with me, right? Your escort, too. Sirius said, of course, I remember. Shall we head in? A voice said, the Duke of Ardentine and Lady Ariel are entering. A man said, Duke Ardentine, it's been a while. Marquis Kylan, head of House Kylan. A Duke said, Marquis Kylan, congratulations on your safe return. Kylan said, haha, it was merely a minor diplomatic dispute. Sirius thinks diplomacy talk. I want to hear it. Ariel said, greet him. He is Marquis Kylan. A Duke said, it is an honor to meet you. My name is Ariel Ardentine. He said, I am Ariel Ardentine. She said, I am Sirius Ardentine. Kylan said, the hidden jewel of the ducal house. They say. Sirius thinks I'm just a nobody, though. Apparently, that's what they call me in social circles. Kylan said, I've heard a lot about you from Belle. Belle said your first meeting was like something out of a novel. Kylan said, Belle, that hurts? Ha! Helios said, it's been a while, Lady Sirius. May I request the first dance with you today? Ariel said, my sister already has plans with me. Helios said, I'll be the one to request it. The first dance is with you, the second one, I'll take. Ariel shouts, no way. The second dance is with Ari. Bella said, then, Lady Ariel, may I request the next one? Ariel said, huh? Sure. Sirius thinks, why are you the one deciding my dances? His Majesty the Emperor, Her Majesty the Empress, and His Highness the Crown Prince are entering. Glory to the Empire, descendants of the sun. We greet His Majesty the Emperor. The king said, raise your heads. On this joyous day as we welcome the new year, I am pleased that you could all join me. The Empress has yet to fully recover, so the Crown Prince will take the first dance in her stead. Sirius thinks the Empress is staying out of the spotlight here too. She really might be the hidden mastermind of the story. I can't stop thinking about the Empress. No way. He's not coming this way, is he? I was looking at the Empress. Don't come this way. The prince said, it's been a while, my lady. Will you grant me the first dance? If you're grateful, grant me a favor next time. This much is an easy request, isn't it? She thinks I knew something felt off. Sirius said, why yes. It would be an honor. Prince Helios said, why me for the first dance? Because it's fun. Sirius said, ah, I see. Sirius thinks, but seriously, how do I apologize to Ariel? Just now, our eyes met. Prince Helios said, I thought this last time too, Sirius. You're truly a terrible dancer. Sirius said, so from now on, don't ask me to dance again. Prince Helios clenched her hand and kissed it. Sirius thinks, this bastard, he's doing this on purpose. Sirius said, so, Bella shouts. Prince Helios, you always do whatever you want. There was an order for the dances, but you just cut in unfairly. Ariel said, that's right. Ariel said, I made that promise a whole month ago. Prince Helios said, ha ha ha. Since when did you two become close? Sirius said, I'm not close with His Highness. Sirius thinks, in what way do we look close? He's just teasing me one-sidedly. Helios said, in what way do we look close? He's just teasing me one-sidedly. Then, between me and Prince Helios, who are you closer to? I had to choose, Sirius said. Lord Grendwin? Helios said, I knew it. Lady Sirius, someone who understands Bella's cuteness, I believed you would choose me. She thinks again. But why does she look so young? She must be older, yet she looks as young as the Duke, who ages slowly because he's a sword master. The fact that she knew of a curse that demands life as payment. Maybe it's because she's a mage herself. Huh! She turned away first. Was she really just looking at me by chance? Kana. What is she saying? She wants me to come to the terrace? Sirius said, I'll be right back. Ariel said, should I come with you, sister? Sirius said, it's fine, I'm just going to meet Kana. Ah. Bring the gift box I left with you to the terrace. Chelsea said, understood. Sirius said, Kana. Isn't your outfit too thin for this cold? Kana said, I forgot to bring a shawl. It's cold, but my reputation in high society isn't great. I was worried you might get bad rumors because of me, so I called you to the terrace. Sirius said, I don't care about my reputation in high society. Ah. It's perfect, I had something to give you, Kana. Kana said, did you make this yourself, Nia? Sirius said, yes, but it broke. I'll bake more cookies next time. Kana said, it's okay. I love it just like this. Homemade cookies, they're too precious to eat. Sirius said, I'll bake you more next time. Kana said, really? Sirius said, of course. There's another gift too. She said, wow. Kana said, it's beautiful. It feels too much for me to accept. Sirius said, it's not expensive, but I wanted to give Kana something I bought with the money I saved. I wanted to give you a gift I personally chose. Kana said, Nia, can I put it on right away? Sirius said, if you cry, your makeup will smudge. I'll do it for you. It looks great on you. So pretty. Kana said, thank you. Huh. What's this at this hour? She thinks this is paper? The only person who would send something like this. There's only one. Kana said, what is that? Sirius said, a letter. She thinks I will be waiting at the pond. Sirius thinks, a letter? It's just one sentence. The pond. He must mean the one I fell into before. Sirius said, I've been waiting for you, Lady Sirius. I endured each day, waiting for the moment I could meet you. Sirius said, it's good to see you too, Your Highness. You left something behind the last time you visited. Sirius said, my coat, I see. You didn't have to return it. And this? Sirius said, cookies. Since I was making some for a friend, I made a batch for you as well, Prince Sirius. A heart shape for my friend, and a star shape for you, Prince Sirius. Sirius said, you're not eating it? Sirius said, no. I plan to cast a preservation spell on it. I suppose I'll need a new display case as well. Sirius said, a preservation spell. I'll just bake you more next time, so go ahead and eat it. Sirius said, since I returned your coat, I'll be on my way now. Sirius said, Lady Sirius, did I do something wrong? Sirius said, huh? No, I just finished what I came to do, so I'm leaving. We're not exactly in a relationship where we make small talk. Sirius said, a relationship, huh? Even if I mean nothing to you, you are special to me. Please look at me. Sirius said, why do you keep avoiding me? Cernia said, is it because I'm cursed? Sirius said, are you afraid of me now? Even though you were the one who showed me what light is, please don't back away from me any further. She thinks his eye color. Sirius said, I don't even know how much longer I can hold back. Sirius said, meeting you was special to me. The moment you stepped into my world, my black and white world became painted in your colors. Cernia thinks they said that when Sirius feels emotions and his curse breaks, his hair and eye color would change. If that's the case, this isn't an act. I don't remember doing anything like that. You must be mistaken because I was the first person to approach you without disdain, like a baby duck imprinting on the first thing it sees. Sirius said, imprinting. Do you know what kind of curse I bear, Lady Cernia? I was cursed to feel no emotions. No joy or hatred, no love or sorrow. I cannot feel anything. Cernia thinks, why is he telling me this? He's supposed to confess to Daisy. Even outside of the original story, there's no reason for Sirius to be drawn to me. In the novel, the reason he was drawn to Daisy was because of the spirits that gathered around her. If I had the power of spirits as well, it would have manifested before I came of age. Cernia said, why are you telling me this? Do you remember the day I saved you? Sirius said, I had no interest in my own life or anyone else's. And yet I saved you. I don't know why, but I was drawn to you. Even if it's just an imprinting mistake, that doesn't matter to me. The writer said the original story has already changed, so Sirius's feelings could very well change too. He could have fallen for me at first sight, or been suddenly drawn to me. But the reasoning from the novel still bothers her. Sirius said, there's only one thing you need to know. I have already imprinted on you. Cernia thinks this sounds kind of like a love confession, doesn't it? Cernia said, so please, don't run away from me. Cernia thinks I told him not to touch me, and yet here he goes again, doing whatever he wants. Cernia thinks he's the one who likes me, so why am I the one being dragged around? Cernia touches her mouth and thinks, of course, he's ridiculously handsome, and totally my type, but that's not the point. Sirius said, oh Lady Cernia, please stop. Cernia said, I never gave you permission to touch me. Cernia thinks, was that too harsh? She said, Prince Sirius. First of all, I didn't avoid you because of your curse. And I'm not as special as you seem to think I am. Most importantly, people are not objects you can possess. You can't force your feelings onto someone else. She thinks he's letting it go in one ear and out the other, former kindergarten teacher instincts kicking in. Cernia said, lastly, you should value yourself more. Sirius said, I promise. If it's not something related to you, Lady Cernia, I won't treat my life so lightly. Cernia said, even if it is related to me, Prince Sirius, your own life should come first. No, actually, just value all life. Even the smallest creatures. Sirius said, I'll try. Cernia replied, good. Now I really have to go. My cousins will worry. Sirius said, yes, Lady Cernia. She thinks may peace find you in the new year. Ariel said, sister, do you have any idea how long I've been searching for you? Ariel said, sister, where have you been? Cernia replied, I got lost and wandered around. I'm sorry for making you worry. Cernia thinks you know the Imperial Palace prohibits magic, and yet you teleported me. Because of that, I didn't even get to greet anyone. Cernia said, Sir Sirius, may peace be with you in the new year as well. Ariel said, from now on, let's stick together, sister. Cernia said, huh? Ah, yes. The Argentine ducal residence. Cernia thinks 2 months have passed since the National Foundation Festival ended. To summarize everything that has happened so far, the Empress I met at the festival maintains an unusually youthful appearance. Considering she was able to obtain a curse that requires a life as a price, there is a possibility that the Empress herself is a magician. Even though the twins have completely avoided the villain route, if the Empress is a magician and ends up destroying the Empire, then nothing else will matter. I want to come up with some kind of countermeasure. Also, strangely, the characters from the original story are showing interest in me. Canarine, Bella, Grendwin, and even Helios, Cernia said I am already imprinted on you. She thinks he shows an obsession beyond comprehension. He is cute, but romance is a bit. My original goal was to avoid Cernia's death ending and prevent the twins from becoming villains. Now that I've already achieved my goal, as long as I'm careful about the Empress, I should be fine. Man said, oh, it's cheap. Sihask, we have freshly caught fish. Cernia said, did you already take the teleport gate? Ariel said, yes, we're about to arrive. The academy is just a short distance from the gate. Ariel said, hold my hand and step down, sister. Cernia said, thank you, Ariel. Ariel said, sister, look over there. Cernia replied, HM? Wow. Ariel said, that over there is the academy. Cernia said, it's really huge. It looks even bigger than the Imperial Palace. Ariel said, that's right. Ariel said, since it has to accommodate so many students, it must be around the same size. Cernia thinks my feelings are a bit complicated. The fact that today is the academy entrance ceremony means that the main story of the novel is about to begin. Surviving and reaching the novel's starting point with the twins took a long time. Cernia said there's still some time before the entrance ceremony, so let's go eat. Ariel said, sounds good. I found a restaurant. Ariel said it's nearby, and their seafood pasta is famous. Cernia thinks there are so many people. Blue eyes, Daisy? Ariel thinks, did she just disappear? Ariel said, sister, what's wrong? Cernia said, nothing. Just now. Ariel said, Cernia said, it's nothing. I must have imagined it. Yeah, it must have been my imagination. Cernia thinks if it really were Daisy, she would be wearing her uniform for the academy entrance ceremony. Cernia said, have a safe trip. Stay healthy. Ariel said, you too, please come back safely. Ariel said, the carriage waiting area is just past the forest. She said, I heard the freshman representative is His Highness, the Crown Prince. Another girl said, I can't believe I'll get to see him up close. I'm so excited. Cernia thinks Helios is the freshman representative? According to the original story, Daisy, who ranked first in the entrance exam, gives the freshman representative speech, and Helios, intrigued by someone who defeated him, Helios said, stop right there. Kana said, who are you? Helios said, you don't even know who I am? The novel was supposed to start with him talking to Daisy instead. If Helios is the freshman representative, that means Daisy didn't get a high score on the entrance exam. Something feels off. Did something happen to Daisy? I need to check. I need to confirm. Grendwin said, sister. Cernia. Cernia said, Lord Grendwin. The entrance ceremony must have started. Why aren't you inside? Grendwin said, well, it was boring, so I sneaked out. She thinks nice timing. Cernia said, if you're not busy, could you do me a favor? Grendwin said, should I call the twins for you? Cernia said no. Instead, Cernia shouts, could you check the entrance exam results board and see what rank a student named Daisy got? Grendwin said, understood. But before that, sister, Cernia said, yes? What is it? Grendwin said, I don't know what's going on, but don't worry too much. Cernia thinks, right, calm down. Things have already deviated from the original story since I arrived, so it doesn't have to be exactly the same. Calm down. I need to calm down. Deep breaths. Cal, I can't calm down. Something is definitely wrong. Daisy is supposed to be the protagonist, yet she hasn't even been mentioned. When is Grendwin supposed to appear? Was it just a close call with Helios? How much has the original story changed? Grendwin said, Cernia. Cernia replied, Lord Grendwin, what rank was Daisy? Grendwin said, She thinks the name Daisy wasn't on the list. Cernia said, the name isn't there? Grendwin thinks she didn't even enroll in the academy? Why? Nobles usually attend the academy regardless of the original story. What on earth happened? Grendwin said, are you alright? Is there anything I can do to help? Cernia said, ugh, my head, thank you for doing me this favor without even asking why. If I could ask just one more thing, please keep the request I made to you today. Sirius thinks, is keeping it a secret really that difficult? Sirius said, if keeping it a secret is difficult, then you don't have to. Grenwyn said, it's not that it's difficult. It's just, well, I apologize. I'm just not used to someone touching me. Sirius said, I'm sorry for touching you so carelessly. Grenwyn said, I'm sorry for touching you so carelessly. Talk to me as casually as you do with Belle. Sirius said, sure. Thanks for your help. Grenwyn said, don't mention it. I'll keep today's events a secret, and I won't tell the twins either. Sirius said, okay, I'll trust you. Also, congratulations on getting into the academy. Hurry inside before you're late. Grenwyn said then, sister, please return safely. Sirius thinks the thought's story changed because I survived. But what if this isn't even the world of Cinderella doesn't wear glass slippers as I knew it? What happens then? A dagger? A dagger? What's going on? When Sirius saw the dagger laying on the ground, she hid behind a tree and started looking. Two men whose faces were covered came. Then she, when she saw Sirius, ordered these men to go and finish her off. Sirius thinks Undine. Water barrier. Meanwhile the men ran towards Sirius. She jumped into a pond while running. Sirius thinks the power of a water spirit, and blue eyes, as expected, that person is. Sirius didn't know that she was doing all this work. Sirius gasps. She thinks I couldn't even protect myself. Once again, Sirius said She thinks, am I going to die like this without being able to do anything? Sirius saved her and said, are you alright? We've moved to a safe place for now. She said, Prince Sirius. Sirius said, how did you get here? Sirius said, you promised to meet me again on the day of the entrance ceremony. She thinks, now that I think about it, we did talk about that, saying we'd see each other at the founding festival or the entrance ceremony, though calling it a promise might be a stretch. Sirius said, either way, thank you for saving me. Sirius thinks, Daisy, what happened to Daisy? Sirius said, Sirius, your hands are shaking. If you're struggling, you can lean on me. She hugs and said, Sirius, there's someone nearby who helped me. Can you save that woman? Sirius said, understood. She ran and said, Daisy. Sirius said, Sirius, wait a moment, the trash has been taken care of. No evidence remains. Sirius said, she thinks that's right. Everyone except Daisy has disappeared. I was the one who said to cherish life, yet, to save Daisy, I stained Sirius' hands. In a world where you must kill to survive, was I forcing my ideals? I just didn't want Sirius to die. Sirius said, I spoke of cherishing life, yet I asked for this terrible favor. Sirius said, it's alright. I'm glad I could be of help to you, Lady Sirius. Besides, there is now one more debt. Sirius replied, I already returned the favor for saving me last time. The cookie. Sirius said, didn't I say I'd take what I wanted? Sirius said, anyway, this person seems to have lost consciousness. Sirius sees the girl and thinks, is this really Daisy? She looks a bit more mature to be Daisy. Sirius said, Sirius, do you sense anything from this woman? Sirius said, I don't know, she does feel strange. She seems closer to a spirit than a human. No, not even a spirit. Something else entirely. It would be best not to get involved. Sirius said, I can't just abandon someone who saved my life. Sirius said, I see. Then, please don't forget that I have saved your life twice now. She said, ugh. She thinks ruthless lone shark. Sirius said, if that is Lady Sirius's wish, I will transport her to the Duke's residence as well. Ariel said, the person who came with you was treated by a priest. I heard you were injured. Sirius thinks, instead of asking who came with me, he's worrying about me first. Sirius said, were you worried? Ariel said, yes. I was worried. So don't get hurt again. Sirius thinks, I guess I still need my parents. It's not just the twins or Canarian who need a guardian. I still do too. Ariel said, why do you do that? Are you in pain? Sirius said, no, it's just, being with Uncle, makes me feel at ease. I guess that's why. Ariel said, go to sleep now. I'll stay by your side until you fall asleep. Sister Nia, I was so worried when I heard you were hurt. Did Ariel tell you? Bella said my brother writes to me every day. Sirius said I got a letter from Kana a few days ago too. She said she has exams starting next week. Kana, you mean Lady Canarian? I'd love to be friends with her too. Sirius said then, how about a tea party together during vacation? That sounds great. If Sister Nia is hosting, I'll definitely be there. Next time, I'll invite you to the Marquis estate. You must come. Bella thinks a month has already passed since the twins entered school. The person presumed to be Daisy has remained asleep and hasn't woken up since. During that time, I investigated the genealogy of the Lutron Viscount family, Daisy's original household. And in the results, greetings, Lady Cernia. I am delivering the genealogy records of the Lutron Viscount family as requested. The Lutron Viscount family was founded by the current Viscount and his wife, who have only one daughter, named Selena Lutron. She has light brown hair close to blonde and brown eyes. She is currently 18 and is married to the eldest son of Count Hallex. There was no Daisy. Cinderella here does not wear glass slippers. Daisy, who entered the academy as the top freshman, gradually builds good relationships with the male protagonists. Upon entering the second year, a terrorist attack occurs at the academy. Helios and Daisy grow close after solving the incident together. Jealous of their relationship, Artel casts a curse before graduation in the second part. The setting shifts to the Imperial Palace and Daisy enters the Magic Tower. Realizing her true feelings. There is no female protagonist. Even if I organize the contents of the original story, at this point where the female protagonist has disappeared, it's meaningless. Cernia cleans the book and said, huh? It's still here. Ariel used to tear up the marriage proposals that come from all over. They're all just mediocre men. Ariel said, sister, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. You're not thinking of getting married, are you? Cernia replied, of course not. What a waste of paper. If only we could at least use it as firewood for the fireplace. Ariel said, but since the ducal house controls heating and cooling entirely with magic artifacts, it's not even worth using as firewood. She thinks I definitely don't want to get married and leave home. With no female protagonist now, what can I do? What is there that I can do? What should I do from now on? And who exactly are you? That time, Sirius protected us, but he won't always be there. I want to study magic too. Cernia said I want to study, become stronger, and make my own choices with my own hands. Huh! Several months later, the maid said my lady, and gave her a letter, saying a letter has arrived from Lady Ariel. Cernia replied him, thank you. Let's see, in this letter, sister, are you doing well? The weather has become quite hot recently. Ariel refuses to lose to the heat, and keeps swinging his sword under the sun. Please scold him in your reply. Cernia said, is this all just about Ariel? I miss you dearly. P.S. Although summer vacation is coming soon, I have decided to stay at the academy to take advanced courses. I am disappointed that I won't be able to return home during the break. Cernia said I tried persuading her not to return to the ducal house and to stay at school, so she's decided. The maid said, shall I store the letters you've read in the box? Cernia replied yes, also, please send a reply to Ariel. Cernia thinks it looks like I'll need to replace the box soon. With Canarian's, Bella's, and Grenouin's observations of Ariel, and Bella's admiration diary, and even Helios is sending playful letters, it fills up so quickly, and yet there's not a single letter from Sirius. Cernia said a walk. They said hydrangeas were newly planted in the garden. I should go see the hydrangeas. She thinks I don't want to think about Sirius for no reason. Chelsea said, my lady, shall I bring a parasol? Ernia said, it's fine. Chelsea said, my lady, the sunlight is strong. Then how about a hat? Ariel seems to be doing well. You decided to stay at the academy. Cernia replied, yes, the ducal house is changing little by little too. Chelsea has been spending more time learning under the head maid, so my personal maid has changed. My current personal maid is, Cernia said, thank you, Daisy, a girl named Daisy. A few months ago, the woman I brought here finally opened her eyes. Sirius said, "Are you Daisy?" She replied, "Is my name Daisy?" Sirius said, "You don't remember?" The man said, "Yes, it seems she has amnesia." Sirius said, "So, amnesia is a real condition?" The man said, "Yes. Even if a priest were to come, mental conditions like this cannot be cured. Sometimes, memories return gradually over time, and in some cases, a great shock can bring them back. But these are just stories passed down, there's no perfect cure." Daisy said, "Are you going to abandon me?" This person is not Daisy, the protagonist of the original novel. But she was being chased by dangerous-looking people. Sirius said, "No, I was the one who brought you here, so I'll take responsibility until the end. If you have nowhere to go, you can find work within the estate." Daisy said, "Thank you. I'll do anything." Sirius said, "What should I call you?" She said, "Daisy." Sirius said, "Huh?" She said, "You called me Daisy, didn't you? Is it because I resemble her?" Sirius thinks I couldn't exactly say. I've never even seen her myself. "Ahaha, I heard that Daisy had brown hair and blue eyes, like you." She said, "I see. Then I'd like to be called Daisy." Sirius said, "All right, then I'll call you Daisy." Daisy said, "Miss, may I ask your name?" She replied, "I'm Sirius Ardentine." "Nice to meet you." Daisy asked, "Nice to meet you too, Lady Sirius." Several months later, time passed, and Daisy quickly adapted to her work as a maid. Since she had lost her memory, I couldn't assign her any difficult tasks, so I made her my personal maid. That way, I could respond immediately if anything happened to her. Daisy said, "Miss, aren't you hot? Should I bring some ice water?" Sirius replied, "I'm fine." Sirius thinks Daisy was quick to learn and well prepared, and unexpectedly, quite a nag. Bam! Sirius said, "Shall we go for a walk together?" "Huh!" Daisy said, "Why is that one rose pink?" Sirius thinks it looks just like Sirius's eye color. "Prince Sirius," said Lady Sirius. Daisy said, "Miss?" Sirius said, "Ah. It's nothing. I just thought it was interesting that only one flower was a different color." She replied, "I see." Sirius said, "Toast to the moonlight." Sirius replied, "It would be nice to have some ice too." Sirius said, "Here you go." Sirius replied, "Ah, thanks." "Ah, thanks. Am I drunk? I see Sirius everywhere." Prince Sirius said, "Did you drink too much?" Sirius replied, "No, I can hold my liquor." Sirius said, "Wait, no. Why are you here? Since when?" Sirius said, "Since you toasted to the moonlight." Sirius asked, "Didn't you say you were going to write letters? Why are you having fun watching me?" Sirius, laughing, said, "Ha ha ha. Ah, I'm sorry, Lady Sirius, you were just too cute." Sirius said, "Do you think I'll let that slide if you say it like that? You didn't even write to me once while you were at the academy." Sirius replied, "I did send letters, but you didn't receive them, Lady Sirius." Sirius took the glass of drink and said, "Couldn't you send them properly? Do you have to send them like that from the academy? Just send them to my address like a normal person." Sirius said, "I apologize. That was my mistake. From now on, I'll make sure you receive them without fail, Lady Sirius." Sirius replied, "Good." Sirius said, "Were you waiting for my letters? You're being quite honest, probably because you're drunk. You're even speaking casually now." Sirius replied, "I've always been honest." She thinks, "Huh? Sirius, when did you get so close?" Sirius closed her and said, "Alcohol. You must be quite weak to alcohol." Sirius said, "I'm not weak with alcohol. I can drink about a bottle of wine." She thinks, I'm dizzy." Sirius thinks, "Sirius, you caught me." She said, "Why did you come today?" Sirius asked, "Because I was curious." Sirius thinks Sirius is curious? Then, even if Daisy wasn't born into the Lutron Viscounty, could she still be the protagonist? Sirius said, "If I showed interest in that woman, would it make you jealous?" Sirius replied, "Why would I be jealous?" Sirius said, "I see. Jealousy. May I perhaps collect my debt now?" Sirius thinks, Sirius eye color. It looks like the rose petals I saw during the day." Sirius said, "Please answer yes." Sirius replied, "Huh?" Why, Sirius closed her and clenched the mouth, kissed her. Sirius said, Cernia, your lips smell like wine. This time, you aren't touching me? Cernia replied, T touching you? What are you talking about? Sirius said, I was simply asking because you touched my face earlier. Cernia replied, T that was because I was drunk. Sirius said, Cernia, I wish that your silver gray eyes would always be directed at me. Even though I know it's excessive greed, I can't stop wanting it. Cernia thinks Sirius and I are kissing. My heart is pounding. I need to change the flow, but my mind is going blank. Sirius said, actually, I came to check because the woman you picked up seemed suspicious. Cernia said, the people who were chasing Daisy? Sirius said, there aren't any noticeable tracking movements. The Duke's security is tight, so they probably haven't even found her whereabouts. She thinks, and yet, he slipped right through that so-called tight security and got in here. Cernia said, do you have any idea who those people are? She smiled and said, thanks for telling me. Sirius replied, T this is something I should be doing anyway. Actually, I just needed an excuse to see you, Cernia. It's late at night, so I'll take my leave now. Cernia said, I hope you have sweet dreams. Cernia said, ugh, that's so unfair, saying everything he wants and then just leaving. I don't think I can drink wine for a while. Cernia thinks summer passed as I lay in bed, thinking about that night with Sirius. I spent my days studying in the Duke's mansion and occasionally meeting Bella. As the seasons changed, winter arrived. Wow, the winter air. The Duke's mansion is busy right now, since the twins are coming home for their school break this winter. Cernia thinks the past when the man said, have you finished tidying the young masters? She replied, I will report to the head maid, and that's not the only reason. Daisy said, the madam, what kind of person is she? Cernia turned and said, the Duchess of Ardentine? She went down to the villa not long after I was born, so I don't really know her. I am not sure either. Daisy replied, I'm sorry. Cernia said, no, there's nothing to be sorry for. Daisy said, Miss, shall we head inside now? The wind is cold. Cernia replied, yeah, let's go. The Duchess of Ardentine, Mariana Ardentine, the mother of the twins, is one of the characters who didn't appear in the original story. Since I only know this world as a novel, there's no way I could know about her. Cernia, who survived. The twins, who did not become villains. The vacant position of the protagonist. Even though the original story has changed, time keeps moving forward. Once the twins graduate, they will carve out their own fates. Now I need to free myself from the constraints of the original story as well. Ariel said, sister. Cernia replied, welcome. Are you tired? Ariel hugged her and said, I'm fine. I miss you, sister. Ariel said, I've been sitting in the carriage so I still have energy left. Cernia said, it's cold? Uncle is waiting too. Let's hurry inside. Ariel said, sister. Did you hear about the tyrant skipped class and sold me out while getting away scot-free? That guy is surprisingly cunning. Cernia said, really? Grendwin seemed so honest. Cernia thinks, though, now that I think about it, Grendwin seemed to dislike bothersome things right from skipping the entrance ceremony. Cernia said, so you've become close enough to use Grendwin's nickname? Ariel said, sister. That's not the point. Ariel said, anyway, my grades are good too. Ariel said, the teacher even praised me. Well done. Now that we're all together, I have something to say. Duke said, tomorrow Mariana is coming? Ariel said, oh, mother? Ariel said, sister, did you know? Cernia said, I wanted to tell you in advance, but it takes a week to send a letter, so I couldn't. Ariel said, even if we knew beforehand, nothing would change. Duke said, I wonder why she's coming now. Cernia thinks it's just like before they got close to Uncle. Is there anything I can do this time? The maid said, young master, young miss. Cernia said, yes, come in. Cernia said, what is it? Maid said, the madam has arrived. She arrived a day early. Cernia said, let's go together. We should greet Aunt. Both said, okay. Lady Mariana said, children, it's been a while. You've really grown so much. Cernia thinks, I see. Dane. And said, it's nice to meet you. I'm Cernia. Mariana shouted, and Cernia thinks, what's this? Mariana said, Cernia, you look just like Roan. She thinks Roan, my mother? Mariana said, I can't stay here forever. I'll go meet Nermes first. Cernia said, alright, take care. Ariel said, it doesn't feel real that she's our mother. Ariel said, me either. She felt like a stranger. Cernia said, do you think mother missed us? Cernia said, what about you too? Did you miss her? Ariel said, mother, I'm not sure. Cernia said, that's okay. Whatever you feel is fine. Would you like some tea? Ariel said, no, I don't have an appetite. Ariel said, I'll return to my room. She replied, alright, I'll go too. Cernia thinks Ariel said she wasn't sure, but she probably wants to get along with the Duchess, just like she wanted to be close to Uncle. Cernia thinks, maybe I should talk to Uncle about the Duchess first. Who could it be at Sino-Sihi? Daisy? Cernia said, who is it? No, please come in. Morena said, could you spare me a moment? Morena said, I'm sorry for coming at this late hour. I thought I should talk to you as soon as possible. Cernia replied, it's all right. What's the matter? Cernia saw him and thought, a necklace? Marina said, the reason I suddenly returned to the duchy was to keep a promise with a deceased friend. Cernia asked, this is? Marina handed over the necklace and said, your mother, Roan, and our classmates at the academy. Both of us were lonely because our mothers passed away early, so we became close friends quickly. However, while Roan was loved by her family and came to study abroad at a foreign academy, I ran away to the academy to escape my father's abuse. Roan helped me break free from my father's shadow. She told me to abandon my family name and live by my own abilities. She was the only one who understood and believed in me. Tears appeared in her eyes and Marina continued, but on her way to attend my wedding, Roan had an accident. I'm the one who caused Roan's death. If I hadn't gotten married, if I hadn't become friends with Roan, she would still be alive now. Cernia handed her a handkerchief and said, here, take this handkerchief. I'm sorry for showing such a pitiful side of myself. Cernia said, it's okay, and thought if the most important person in your life disappeared because of you, who wouldn't be sad? Cernia said, Roan once mentioned, Marina continued, something she wanted to do for her daughter when she became an adult. I wanted to do it in Roan's place since she couldn't. It's late, but congratulations on becoming an adult, and happy birthday 2 days early. Please accept this. In Rihen, Roan's homeland, there's a tradition where mothers give their most cherished accessory to their daughters when they come of age. Cernia thought she came all this way just to give me this. I must tell my aunt these words in place of my mother. Cernia said, the accident that took my mother's life wasn't your fault. It's okay. My mother would have just regretted not being able to make it to your wedding. Marina said, and that she sincerely congratulates you on your marriage. Cernia said, I'm sure that's what she would have said. I didn't mean to make you cry. Please wait a moment. I asked the maid to bring some warm tea. She thought I feel bad for Daisy at this late hour though. Marina said, thank you. Cernia asked, may I open the box you gave me? Marina replied, of course. It's Roan's wedding ring. Cernia thought if Mom were still alive, I feel like she really would have passed this down to me. It fits perfectly. I guess Mom and I have the same finger size. The maid said, here's the herbal tea, miss. Cernia said, thank you, you can leave it and go. Marina said, if you have something to say, please feel free. Cernia said, why did you leave for the villa, leaving the twins behind? I didn't have the courage to stay at the Duke's house I married into, and just accept Roan's death. And I didn't have the courage to face you. Marina replied, because I'm a coward. Cernia said, then, didn't you miss the twins? Ariel. Tears appeared in her eyes and Marina replied, I miss them desperately. They're my children after all. But how could I embrace them when Roan can no longer hold you? That would be a betrayal to Roan and you. Cernia replied, no, it should have been the opposite. If you wanted to atone for my mother's death, you should have lived an even happier life. Cernia said, it should have been the opposite. If you wanted to atone for my mother's death, you should have lived an even happier life. Marina said, happiness. Cernia replied, and if you had died first and were watching over those left behind, would you have wanted Mom to suffer alone, separated from me? Marina said, of course not. Why would Roan? Because of me. Ah, Cernia said, it's not too late yet. Talk to the twins. Marina said, would the children want to talk to me? Cernia said, of course. Marina said, the rain has stopped already. Nermes. Ariel said, have you been crying? Marina replied, yes, I talked with Cernia. Aren't you curious about what we talked about? Ariel said, not really. So, as you said earlier, are you going back tomorrow? Judging by your face, it seems you have changed your mind. Marina said, you've changed while I haven't seen you, but your personality is still horrible. Ariel said, you too. Both you and I have changed a lot. Is that, thanks to Cernia? Because she's Morse and Roan's daughter. Nermes, those two were the only ones you let your guard down around. Marina said, unlike me, who you just married because we were in similar situations. Ariel said, well, you must have felt it too. Cernia is special. Marina thought Nermes, of all people, is smiling. Ariel said, I may not have been a good spouse to you, but I can be a good friend. Marina said, you should also think that you don't need me. Ariel said, it's a decision I made myself, so you don't have to worry about it. Ariel continued, as long as you're within the Ardentine's protection, I'll protect you. What kind of conversations did Nermes and Cernia have, and how did they become so close? That child, Cernia, has become the thread that ties the Ardentine ducal family together. It's already been a week since Aunt started staying at the duchy. Contrary to saying she'd leave soon, Aunt remained at the Duke's mansion. Her relationship with the twins has also been restored, and the Duke's household is brimming with life. Cernia said, welcome. But, Your Highness the Crown Prince, why on earth? Granwyn said, Rin and Belle said there's a tea party at the Ardentine mansion, so I tagged along. Cernia thought, without an invitation? Bella said, I tried to invite. Helios said, that's right. Bella tried to stop him. Granwyn said, the more people at a tea party, the merrier. Cernia said, thanks for coming along, Kana. Kana replied, I miss you, Nia. Cernia thought, it's like a gathering of all the characters from the original novel. But now they're not just characters in a novel. They're friends who will stay by my side. Kana said, Bella, you're entering the academy this time, right? Bella replied, yes. I'm so excited. And please speak comfortably. You'll be my senior at the academy anyway. Cernia thought Bella and Canarine, who shouldn't have had any connection according to the original story, are now greeting each other. Ariel said, Ren, when are you going to return the handkerchief you borrowed last time? My sister embroidered that precious piece herself. Granwyn replied, I left it at home. Ariel asked, last time you said it was at the academy? Ariel and Granwyn, who should have disliked each other, are now friends. Ariel said, Your Highness coming here makes my sister uncomfortable. Ariel, who should have had a crush on Helios, and Helios replied, I have the ability to make you uncomfortable. That's quite an honor. Cernia thought Helios, who should have found Ariel annoying, have all changed from the original story. Sirius, he probably wouldn't come even if he's invited to crowded places like a tea party. Ariel placed his hand on Cernia's eyes. Cernia said, Ariel? When she looked ahead, she cleared her throat and said, there. Ariel said, happy birthday. Granwyn said, sis, you need to blow out the candles. Helios said, if the wax strips, we won't be able to eat the cake. Cernia said, yes. Granwyn said, Lady Cernia, happy birthday. Kana said, it's a gift. Cernia replied, thank you. Helios said, since I attended, I prepared a gift too. Cernia said, thank you. Helios said, why such a lifeless reaction only to my gift? Cernia smiled and replied, no, it's not, probably, haha. Helios said, you're terrible at controlling your expression. Ariel said, Your Highness Helios, stop teasing my sister. Helios laughed. Cernia thought the days I fretted just to survive, the memories I built growing up with the twins, and the bonds that have changed from the original story, All of them have come together to create this moment. I'm so happy it makes me scared thinking of when it might end. Everyone, thank you so much. The joyful tea party, the Academy's vacation, everything has come to an end. The peaceful and quiet daily life of the Duke's family has begun once again. Cernia said, "It's me." She knocked on the door. He replied, "Come in." Cernia said, "Thank you, Dane. Why did you call for me?" And with this notice, my peaceful life came to an end. Go to the academy. Dane said, "My lady." Me? Cernia said, "Uncle, I'm an adult, you know? I'm past academy age." Dane cleared his throat, ahem. He said, due to a staffing shortage at the academy, they are recruiting externally. Lady Cernia, you will be assigned as the instructor for basic magic theory. Cernia said, "Why me, of all people?" Dane said, "The Duke's former mentor, who is currently working at the academy, personally nominated you." Cernia said, "The Sword Master?" Dane said, "Yes, the Sword Master." Sir Lucarian said that he had to see you. He sent both a letter of recommendation and a temporary teaching certificate. Cernia said, "But an academy dropout as a teacher? Wouldn't I be underqualified?" Ariel said, "After all the effort you've put in, what are you saying? Your knowledge of magic and academic skills are more than sufficient." Cernia said, That's... Cernia thought, ever since I met Daisy, I wanted to do something with my own strength. So I kept trying. I hated being powerless and wanted to change. Besides, if I go to the academy, I might be able to meet Sirius too. Alright, I will go to the academy. It's about time for the events from the original story to begin. I won't be bound by the original, but there's no harm in being prepared. I'll check on the twins, and also look into Sirius's curse. The Academy Terror Incident. The second son of the truck marquis attempted to assault the Sword Master's younger sister. As a result, she ended up dying in an accident. The Sword Master held a grudge against the second son of the truck marquis and carried out a terror attack in revenge. In the novel, this incident served as the first moment when Daisy, who was at the scene, and Helios, who was investigating the attack, grew closer. But in a world where events proceed even without the heroine, how will this incident play out? With that curiosity in mind, I have now entered the very center of the incident, Varian Academy. After organizing my thoughts, I realized there are too many suspicious aspects to this incident. If he was at the level of a Sword Master, he could have dealt with them quietly instead of resorting to terror. Why didn't he? Besides, the target of his revenge didn't even die. Moreover, at the scene of the attack, in the Magic Research Building, the sword granted to the Sword Master by the Imperial family was left untouched. Because of that evidence, he was arrested. This incident needs further investigation. I need to find the Sword Master's sword that Daisy discovered first. Cernia said, "I heard you are the Duke's mentor." "I am Cernia Ardentine." "Did Nell talk about me?" The man replied, "I am Lucarian." "Why are you staring so intently? Have you fallen for me?" Cernia said, No. Fall for you? I prefer younger men?" No. It's just that you looked incredibly young. That's why I was staring." She thought he looks the same age as or younger than me. Lucarian laughed loudly, "Ha ha ha. You're bolder than I expected. From what the twins say, you sounded like someone who couldn't do anything without them." Cernia smiled and said, Haha. Maybe it's because the twins like me so much." Lucarian said, "The twins talk about you all the time." He knocked on the door and a voice answered, "Come in." A woman said, "Miss Cernia, it's a pleasure to meet you. I am Charlotte, the headmistress of Varian Magic Academy." Cernia said, "It's an honor to meet you. I am Cernia Ardentine." Charlotte said, "Thank you for accepting despite the sudden request. First, let me explain your job. In addition to teaching the basics of magic theory, you will serve as the temporary homeroom teacher for Mr. Lucarian's class. That's the class with the twins. That class is full of unique students, and only Lucarian has been able to keep them under control. But I believe you'll be able to handle it, Miss Cernia." She thought, now that I think about it, there's a count's heir, a duke's heir, and 2 crown princes. It'll be hard to manage them with anything less than high nobility. Sirius replied, understood. Charlotte said, I look forward to working with you. Charlotte's servant said, I'll have your belongings moved to the dormitory. Your research lab is on the 3rd floor of the main building, and your work starts tomorrow. Sirius cleared her throat and replied, I'd like to meet a student named Sirius. Lucarian said, Sirius is on medical leave. Sirius said, is Sirius sick? Then, Lucarian said, he's not in the dormitory either. Sirius asked, then where is he? Lucarian replied, do not look for Sirius. Sirius thought, don't look for Sirius. Hearing that, makes me want to look for him even more. I searched the dormitory and the classroom, but Sirius wasn't there. The only place left is the clock tower, but I need teleportation to go up. I should give up on this place. This feeling. It's from the basement of the clock tower. Maybe Sirius is underground. The basement of the clock tower. There's a strong magical presence here. Sirius entered the basement and saw Sirius lying in chains, wounded. Sirius shouted, Sirius! Sirius, are you okay? Sirius sighed and said, Sirius, run away. Sirius asked, what's going on? Explain it to me slowly. Sirius thought, Sirius' eyes. They've turned completely black. Sirius said, wait, Sirius. It hurts. Sirius clenched her face and kissed her. Sirius thought, no. Sirius said, there's no use resisting. I want you. Tears appeared in his eyes. She thought, Sirius. He looks uneasy. Sirius said, Sirius, calm down. Let's take a deep breath, okay? Sirius replied, I'm right here. Sirius? Sirius, you're the real Sirius, not an illusion. I promise not to touch you without permission. I'm sorry. Sirius replied, don't cry. Let's go outside and talk. But my legs, I have no strength. Sirius said, my curse breaks when I feel emotions. It's a curse bound by spirits, so I have one inside me. When I saw you, all my emotions surged at once. I needed to control them. Since it's a spirit-bound curse, you can regulate it, huh? Was that why you were in the clock tower's basement? Because of your curse? Sirius said, yes, that's right. My desire to have you became too strong, so I locked myself away to suppress it. Sirius said, you strengthened the curse to erase your emotions. Sirius replied, yes, by infusing magic into the spirit inside me. But my magic went out of control, so I had to ask Professor Lucarian for help. Sirius said, that chain. It was from the Sword Master, huh? No wonder it reacted so sensitively. Sirius said, why did you push your curse to such extremes? Because I made a promise to you, Sirius. I promised not to touch you. Right now I'm like a broken vessel. The moment I see you, my emotions overflow again. So I have no choice but to suppress them or get your permission. Sirius said, still, what you did earlier is absolutely not okay. Sirius lifted her and laughed. Sirius said, what's so funny? Sirius said, at first I thought you were just an illusion, Sirius. Why did you come to the academy? And you can speak casually to me. Sirius said, in that case, I got a job as a temporary teacher. Professor Lucarian called me here. Sirius said, I see. I'm glad you came, Sirius. Should I carry you to the faculty dormitory? Sirius said, do you want me to get in trouble on my first day of work? What kind of teacher gets carried back by a male student? Sirius said, I see, that's unfortunate. Then, can I see you again? Sirius said, of course. We'll see each other tomorrow morning, since I'm also your temporary homeroom teacher. Sirius asked, tomorrow? Then, see you tomorrow, Sirius. She smiled and replied, yeah. See you tomorrow. Sirius said, this mark is definitely. Sirius thought it's from Sirius biting my neck. Sirius said, all right. With this the wound won't be visible, right? A voice from behind the door said, Lady Sirius, have you woken up? Sirius thought, Lord Kane? The man replied, yes. Sirius said, Lord Kane, good morning. Kane said, Lady Sirius, originally I was supposed to give you this after the closing session yesterday. It's the contract. Also, please read the Academy's rules and guidebook. Senia thought there are quite a lot of things to follow. Senia replied, here you go. Kane said, from now on, please don't skip the morning and closing sessions. There are no separate classes today, so just attending those will be enough. If you have any questions, feel free to ask anytime. Senia said, yes, thank you. Senia thought if I hadn't covered my neck with a scarf, I would have heard something about it. After the morning session, it's time to check on the site of the terrorist attack. Senia shouted, guys, good morning. For the next 3 months, I will be the temporary homeroom professor. My name is Senia Ardentine. Senia thought, come to think of it, I was meant to be a temporary professor, but being a homeroom one wasn't mentioned. Senia said, there are no announcements today. Listen to today's lessons well and I'll see you during our closing session. That's all. She thought, first, let's prioritize finding the most important piece of evidence, the dagger. Why did the second son of Marquis Truck come to the Academy from the Imperial Palace? Was it a demotion? The place where the second son of Marquis Truck was present was the most destroyed. But still, the fact that the explosion happened when no one was around is strange. What did I miss from the original story? In the original, the clue Daisy finds is the Imperial gift dagger in the first floor Magic Stone Research Lab, and later a diary in Lucarian's room. This is strange. I found the shining dagger between the books. It was written in the original. Helios said, what are you doing here, Professor? Senia said, who are you? Helios replied, it's me, Professor. Senia said, Lord Helios? You startled me. What are you doing here? I asked first. Helios said, what is a professor with no connection to the terrorist incident doing in this place? Senia thought, this is troublesome. Helios is suspicious. It was best not to meet Helios, but this is the second best option. Senia said, I, who haven't even graduated from the academy, was suddenly called as a temporary professor. Don't you think that's strange? Helios said, do you think I'm connected to the terrorist incident? Senia thought Helios is currently investigating the case on his own. If it were Cinderella doesn't wear glass slippers, Daisy would have been here. You don't know about my circumstances as a professor. Let's use that part. Senia said, you know that Professor Lucarian and my uncle have a mentor-student relationship, right? My uncle, upon hearing about the terrorist incident, personally recommended me. She thought the one who came was the Sword Saint. Senia said, but even though I look like this, I do have the discretion to take on the case. You don't trust me? Fine, let's summarize the events so far. She thought the incident was an explosive terrorist attack using an artifact. There were no casualties, but currently all research in the Magic Research Hall has been halted. There were no stolen research materials, so it's presumed that the crime wasn't to steal research data. There are no suspects yet, and the motive of the culprit is still unclear. Helios said, you know the details? Senia said, I was investigating based on the information the director provided. Do you still suspect me? Helios asked, the fact that you revealed your identity so easily keeps my suspicions intact. Isn't this kind of investigation usually done secretly? Senia replied, if I didn't confess, I feel like you'd keep suspecting me until the end. Helios said, so, if I were the culprit, what are you planning to do by confessing? Do you believe me because I'm the crown prince? Senia said, if you're the culprit, Lord Helios, you would have killed me while hiding your presence. But you spoke to me, didn't you? Helios said, understood. I'll believe you. Senia said, now that I have finally convinced you, it's your turn to convince me, Lord Helios. Helios said, what? Senia said, you should be in class right now, why are you at the scene? Helios replied, well, Senia asked, just kidding. Well, I'll keep it a secret from the other professors. Helios said, Professor, you're a strange person. Senia said, yes, thank you for the compliment. More importantly, did you find anything at the scene? Helios said, when I entered the building, I felt someone's presence. Senia said, wasn't that me? Helios said, maybe. Anyway, You came all the way here alone, so this is where you were. I was looking for you. Sirius said the scarf looks good on you, Professor. Cernia thought I'm only wearing this because of you. And said Sirius, shouldn't you be in class too? Sirius said I needed to consult you about something, Professor. But I didn't expect you to be here with my brother. Helios said it's been a while. Cernia thought what's with this awkward atmosphere? Cernia said Lord Helios and I were investigating the terrorist incident together. Helios said Professor. Cernia said Lord Helios, Sirius is trustworthy, so it's fine. Sirius said if that's the case, I'll help too. Helios replied you two seem quite close. You even talk informally to each other. If the professor insists that much, before coming in here, I found a dagger with the Imperial crest on the 3rd floor. A dagger awarded only to the heroes of the Empire. Cernia thought Licarian's dagger. Why was the dagger on the 3rd floor? Anyway, we need to act first. Cernia said then it must be Professor Licarian's dagger. He must have dropped it while investigating. I'll return it to him. Helios said we can't rule out the possibility that Professor Licarian is the culprit. Cernia said oh, come on. No way. The culprit coming all the way to the academy to investigate? That's highly unlikely. Professor, there's a rat. A rat wearing an invisibility cloak. Helios said Professor Dran? Why is a professor from the investigation team here? Cernia thought Dran? I've never seen this character before. His name never appeared in the novel either. Why did he attack me? Sirius said I found it suspicious that you're following my brother up to the 3rd floor, so I was watching you. It's strange. None of the other professors from Professor Licarian's investigation team are here. Helios said are you saying that Professor Dran deliberately dropped this dagger? Cernia said if that's true, then what would Professor Dran gain? Helios said do you have any guesses? Professor Licarian's expulsion. What if some force behind Professor Dran is trying to frame Professor Licarian to tie him down? Licarian is a sword master, which makes him a threat, but ordinary assassins wouldn't be able to kill him. Helios said it's a reasonable theory, but it would be difficult to falsify evidence using the Imperial dagger. Awarded daggers must always be carried at all times, and the Imperial crest cannot be forged. Cernia said they must always carry their awarded dagger? That makes it feel even more like a setup. An Imperial item that can't be stolen or forged. The second son of Truck, who was affiliated with the Imperial Palace. An incident where no one else was harmed except for the Sword Saint's target of revenge. I don't know who the mastermind is exactly, but they're definitely tied to the royal family. Dran suddenly fell to the ground and shouted this is bad. Cernia said what's going on? Sirius said he tried to commit suicide, so I sealed his movements. Since he's awake, let's ask him directly. Professor Dran, were you trying to kill Professor Cernia? Then, did you also place this dagger here? Dran shouted KGH. Helios said there must have been a jumj placed on him. Jumj, a magic spell that restricts actions or speech. He survived, but the chances of regaining consciousness are slim. Since the magic was engraved on his soul, his memories are likely erased as well. Cernia thought someone who knows how to use soul-binding curses. Only one person comes to mind. The Empress. Cernia said let's take Dran to the headmaster for treatment. If there's even a small chance of recovery, we should try. Sirius said yes, Lady Cernia. She said I'll go with you. Why, Lord Helios? Helios replied there's something I want to confirm. Cernia thought if he follows me to the headmaster's office like this, he'll find out that my reason for being here was a lie. Cernia said wasn't Lord Helios going to conduct a separate investigation about the dagger? There is an assassin. Stay close to me. A masked person? Is he from the same group as the one who attacked Daisy? He infiltrated the academy? The academy is protected by the same defensive wall as the Imperial Palace, as well as a central device connected to a barrier that only allows entry to those who have registered their blood. In other words, there is an insider in the academy helping the masked person. The masked man said, "Can you still stop me?" Helios said, "That blue light. An aura user? Sirius, watch out." Sirius said, "I thought we might get something out of him if we interrogated him. That's why I didn't kill him." Licarian said, "You guys, what are you doing here?" Another man said, "Professor Licarian, why are you going alone?" Cernia thought the sword saint. Cernia said, "Both of their lives are in danger. We need to call the priest first." The man said, I'll go get him." Cernia said, "Lord Licarian, I have something important to tell you. Please, let's step aside for a moment." Licarian said, "Of course. You say we should call the priest first, but even if you can deceive the rest, you can't fool me." Cernia replied, "I'm sorry." Licarian said, "Intruders, magical attacks, what on earth is going on? First, please answer one thing for me. The dagger bestowed by the royal family, do you still have it with you?" Licarian said, "Is that question related to the incident? I'll let this one slide for Nell's sake. I returned the dagger when I left the Imperial palace. Back then, during the previous emperor's reign, the Imperial authority was weak. The influential nobles were keeping an eye on me, and I was disgusted by it, so I threw it away and left." Cernia thought a completely different story from the original has emerged. If this is the case, the Sword Saint is completely off the suspect list. This person is trustworthy. Cernia said, "Professor Licarian, at the terrorist site there was a dagger engraved with the royal emblem." Licarian said, "So, Helios was hinting not to bring that up, huh?" Cernia asked, "Is that what happened? It seems this conversation will take a while, so I'd like to discuss the rest in the director's office." Licarian said, "All right. I also have something to report to the director, so let's go together." Licarian said, "You should go rest in your rooms." Helios asked, "We'll accept the proper punishment, but with this incident we can't just stay in our rooms." Licarian said, "This is the responsibility of your professors. I'll use magic to break free and try to undo the masked person's seal, Lady Cernia." Cernia thought, "Serious. Okay, I'll leave it to you, Sirius." She shouted, "We don't have time, so let's hurry." Charlotte said, "Licarian, you came at the right time. I was just about to go out because I sensed a huge surge of magical energy." Cernia said, "Director, that's..." Licarian sighed, Charlotte said, "Miss Cernia, could you tell me what happened?" Cernia explained everything: Lord Licarian's dagger, the aura, Dran, and the insider at the academy. Charlotte said, "I see. In that case, we'll have to root them out. Professor Licarian, please take charge of the swordsmanship side." Licarian said, "Understood." Charlotte said, "Miss Cernia, have you thought of a way?" Cernia replied, "It's risky, but if there are other professors under a seal like Professor Dran, we might be able to identify them through simple interrogation." Charlotte said, "A seal, alright then. Shall we go meet the barrier administrators first?" Cernia thinks the clock tower, so this is where the barrier control device is. Charlotte said, "Shall we go, Miss Cernia?" Cernia thinks, is it teleportation magic? Even though it's the middle of the day, the sky looks like outer space. I had no idea there was a place like this inside the clock tower. That mana crystal is the core of the barrier. Charlotte said, "It's also where we pledge our loyalty by offering our blood, granting us access to the academy as we swear upon our mana hearts." Administrators, I assume you've already heard that there's an intruder in the academy? Cernia said. "I didn't secretly register the intruder with the mana crystal. Each of you, please take turns swearing your innocence, pledging upon the mana hearts registered with the crystal." The maids are taking turns saying, "I swear. I swear. I swear." Rebecca said, "I didn't secretly register the intruder with the mana crystal." Charlotte said, "Revel, please swear now. If you refuse to swear, you will be considered a traitor who registered the intruder in the academy, and you will be severely punished." Sirius said while shaking him, he shouted, "This is your doing, isn't it?" Rebecca replied, "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything. If you want to frame me, why don't you swear first?" "You should swear." "I was deceived by Rebecca and registered the intruder." Sirius shouted, "It wasn't me. I was tricked by Rebecca's lies into registering the intruder. RP. He fell to the ground. Revel collapsed just like Dran. This is definitely, Cernia said. Lady Rebecca, could you swear once more? I'm innocent and no one is backing me. Rebecca said, what? But I already swore. Backing me. At that moment Rebecca vomited blood and fell face first onto the ground. Revel and the others looked and said the two of them. Cernia thinks it looks like both of them were onto it. She said Rebecca has died. Charlotte said, and Revel, with only his mana heart shattered, has survived. Cernia said, is Revel in a condition to speak? Charlotte said yes. Listening to Revel's words, the mastermind is believed to be the Imperial family. Cernia thinks it's not a surprising fact. Lurican said, and here's the list of intruders. I heard they told us to register because people from the Imperial Palace are coming. From the Imperial dagger that cannot be replicated to the figure from the Imperial Palace, this is quite. You must be surprised too, Cernia. She replied, Professor Lucarian, why was only Professor Dran left at the terrorist explosion site? Lurican said, at the Research Institute site? It's because there were no people. Such an out-of-the-blue question. Due to the preparations for the founding festival, 2/3 of the people, excluding faculty, were summoned to the Imperial Palace. This year, twice as many people were called. On top of having to investigate the terrorist incident, we couldn't leave the site empty, so we left Dran there. Cernia thinks it makes sense that the Academy is short on manpower. It's not that there were few casualties from the terrorist incident, but rather that there were few people at the school to begin with. Cernia said the Imperial family's large-scale manpower mobilization. The dagger that undoubtedly belongs to the Imperial family. The testimony from Revel about the involvement of outsiders and the Imperial family. What exactly is the Imperial family targeting at the Academy? The testimony from Revel about the involvement of outsiders and the Imperial family. Lurican said, what exactly is the Imperial family targeting at the Academy? The weapon that only one person in this Academy possesses, and the effort to bring that person out. Cernia said, in other words, I believe the goal of this operation was to exile you, Sword Saint Lucarian, out of the nation. Cernia said, Lord Lucarian is also a sword master. It's easy to point to the culprit because of the grudge related to the Marquis of Truck. Lurican said, that rumor still. You even know about that. Things like revenge are something I don't even think about. My younger sibling wouldn't want that either. Lurican said, well, let's end the small talk here. The Imperial family is trying to drive me out. Is someone preparing for treason? Cernia said, treason. In the original story, Ariel committed treason after the Sword Saint was exiled from the nation. The Empire's power weakened, come to think of it. Who benefits if the Empire weakens? If I had to name someone, it would be the neighboring Brilliant Kingdom. And someone from there, Cernia said, the Empress is trying to destabilize the Empire. Charlotte said, but without solid evidence, we can't rashly accuse the Empress. Miss Cernia, while listening to the story, this came to mind. Cernia replied, she thinks the list of personnel mobilized for the founding festival 10 years ago? Cernia said, Duran and Rebecca were on the National Foundation Festival list from 10 years ago. Charlotte said, back then, they barely had any magic power. But after attending the festival, their magic increased significantly. That's why Duran became a magic teacher, and Rebecca was assigned as a barrier specialist. The commonalities between them were low status, low magic power, and contact with the royal family. Cernia said we should investigate those whose magic power suddenly amplified after visiting the royal family first. Charlotte said, yes, that's my plan. Dane said, now then, let's head over to Duran's cell. If we want to check on Duran's condition, we need to call Sirius. Cernia replied, yes. He clenched her waist and shouted, fly, Cernia. She replied, what? He said, higher, higher. Cernia shouted, don't drop me. What do you think you're doing? He said, he's here. Cernia said, Sirius? Mr. Lucarian, what was that? Lucarian said, if you don't understand it, he'll explain it. Cernia replied, what? Lucarian bowed down and said, Lady Cernia, I'm sorry. Sirius said, see? He should be sorry. He acts all stiff with everyone else. Sernia touched her face and said, Sirius, what's going on? How about you tell us why you're here instead of kneeling? Lucarian said that I placed an eavesdropping spell on Lady Sernia's handkerchief. Sernia said, what? Since when? Lucarian replied, since last summer break. I was worried because Lady Sernia kept getting caught up in strange incidents. Sernia said, even so, that's not right. And how did Mr. Lucarian find out? Sirius said, I've been his homeroom teacher for 2 years now. What do you think? For now, checking on Duran is the priority. Let's move. Sernia replied, all right. Duran isn't going to regain consciousness. Lucarian said the masked man lifted the magical restriction and searched his memory. But surprisingly, he didn't know much. Sernia replied, so, what did you find out? Arania. It means spider, in ancient language. Sirius said there's an organization called the same that gathers orphan children sold due to poverty and places magical restrictions on them. Only those who survive become its members. Sernia said, where is their base? She thinks it's not in a single place. They exist all over the Empire, even in the capital. Sirius said, Sernia, what would you do? I'm not good at thinking things through. Either way, we made it this far thanks to you, so I'll follow your decision to the end. Sernia thinks the principal's office acted like they were going to investigate the royal family immediately, but the result is already decided. They are an untouchable force, and we lack decisive proof to accuse them. For now, we'll have to cover up this incident. If that's the case, Sernia said, if it were me, I'd name Duran and Rebecca as the culprits behind the terrorist attack. They were involved in the incident, and they have no ties to any high-ranking nobles. It makes it easier for us. It's a fabricated story, and it doesn't sit well with me to blame the dead, but we're not ready to go against the royal family yet. Sernia thinks besides there are still things we need to look into. The fact that you summoned me, Helios said, is an honor, teacher. So why did you summon me? Sernia replied, I wanted to inform you of the results of the terrorist incident. In the original story, it was never revealed why Helios investigated the attack. It was only stated that he found something suspicious. Sernia said the recent terrorist attack involved an insider at the academy, and the organization behind it intended to create chaos within the academy. Sirius said, an organization behind it? Sernia thinks, what exactly did Helios find suspicious? Helios said, are they? Oh, there's a royal dagger as evidence. Shouldn't we ask the royal family for help? Sernia thinks I can't just rely on what's written in the novel anymore. Sernia said, what if the mastermind is connected to the royal family? Helios said, are you suspecting the royal family right now? Sernia said, no, I'm not. I'm just saying there could be a hidden force within the royal family that wants to shake the empire. Sernia said, why did Lord Helios investigate the terrorist attack in the first place? Helios said, that's because I received a letter from my mother. She said someone with past issues with Mr. Lucarian was coming to the academy, and she was worried, so she asked me to keep an eye on them. Sernia thinks the Empress again. Everything was moving according to her plans. Since her plan failed this time, the events that unfold from now on might change drastically. I'm still powerless. I have no allies to stand against her, nor the strength to fight alone. Even so, I can't just sit back and do nothing. If I want to do something, I need to think. This is only the first step. 3 months later. These 3 months have been both long and short at the same time. Sernia said, anyway, today is my last class. I was happy to meet you all, and I wish you all the best for your future academy life. Ariel hugged her and said, Yuni. Ariel said, Nuna. Sernia cleared her throat and replied, huh? Ariel said, I heard you were assigned to investigate the terror incident? Ariel said, we could have helped. Sernia replied, I was fine on my own. Bella said, really? Wasn't it a lot of work? Canarian said, are you sure you're okay? Helios said, you could have consulted with me too. Sernia replied, whoa. Ha. Thank you, all of you. Sernia hugged both Ariel and said, everyone, let's meet again at the duchy. Sernia thinks it was fun teaching at the academy. Maybe being a teacher is truly my calling. This 1500 hours at the academy? I finished teaching and returned to the duchy, so why? Canarian said, I'm honored to stand here today as the graduate representative. Congratulations on your graduation, and I wish you all the best in your future. Cernia thinks, huh? Oh no. The kids have turned into villains. Cernia said that dream again. She thinks ever since the Academy terror incident, I often dream of becoming Daisy. I don't understand why. If I really reincarnated as Daisy, then why did I return as Cernia? No point dwelling on an impossible question. No time to waste. Today is the Duchy's celebration party. In the Empire, graduation from the Academy marks adulthood. Ariel told me not to attend the graduation ceremony, but we agreed to celebrate together at home. A maid entered and said, My lady, Lady Ariel and Master Ariel have returned. Cernia said, guys. Both said, Nuna. Uni. Cernia said, congrats on graduating. Those 2 years just flew by, huh? Let's talk over dinner. Ariel said, yes. I'll go change. The Duke said, congratulations on becoming an adult. Their mother Mernia said, I'm truly grateful you grew up safely. Ariel said, thank you. Ariel laughed, hee hee. Maid Daisy said, huh? Yes. Yes? Cernia said, the gift I asked for? Are you alright? Daisy replied, I'm sorry. It's my first time seeing the young masters and ladies smile so happily, I got distracted. Cernia thinks you talk like you've known the twins for years. Daisy clenched the box and said, I wrapped it beautifully with a red ribbon. Hurry and give it to them. Cernia replied, thank you. I prepared this as a graduation gift. You both worked so hard. Ariel said, Uni, I don't think I did anything to deserve this. Ariel said, can I open it now? Ariel said, open it in your room. Ariel said, ah. The Duke and Mernia laughed. Later at night, Cernia walked in the garden. She thinks the twins can really hold their liquor. Maybe I drank more than usual because of the mood. Her face flushed, and she said I should get some fresh air. As soon as Cernia started to walk toward the garden, rubbing her eyes, she saw Sirius kneeling in front of her. Sirius said, S.E. Renaya, my lady. She thinks, Sirius, what's going on? Sirius closed in on her. Cernia thinks he's burning up. She said, Sirius, are you hurt? Sirius said, I don't want to die. Cernia replied, what are you talking about? You need to lie down on the bed first. Sirius said, if I don't break the curse before I become an adult, I will die. The lifespan of an immature soul is not long. But Cernia said, until you become an adult. That's soon. Why didn't you tell me until now? Sirius said, I thought it wouldn't matter if I died. Because I didn't want to do something that you disliked, Lady Cernia. So I didn't say anything. I thought it was my fate to die anyway. But my heart started to change. Even though I knew it was greedy of me, I couldn't give up. Sirius said, when I thought about dying and another man being by your side, I couldn't wish for your happiness. She thinks, why is he? In the original story, he was drawn to Daisy because of the spirit's power. But I have neither the spirit's power nor was our encounter fated. No, looking for a reason is just an excuse to run away. I believe that there was no such thing as love without reason, but now, to me, Sirius is. Cernia touched her face and romantically said, Sirius, I want to break your curse. She thinks I wanted to see him happy. I didn't want to see Sirius in pain. I don't know if it's pity or just meddling, but I can't refuse Sirius, who's clinging on to me. Sirius said, do you know what that means? She replied, yes. Cernia said, you don't have to hold back. Don't suppress your feelings, take me, Sirius. Ah. But not in the Duke's mansion. My uncle is here, and so are the twins. Sirius said, if that's the case, I understand. Cernia thinks this place. It's Sirius's room in the Imperial Palace. My clothes have changed into nightwear as well. Sirius said, Lady Cernia, this is your last chance. If you don't want this, even now, she replied, I don't dislike it. She lying on the bed started romance and kissing him. She said, HN. Sirius said, it's okay, you don't have to hold back. Sirius kissed again and she romantically said, ah. She said, Sirius. Sirius replied, yes? Cernia said, teach this position. it's embarrassing. Sirius said it's fine. You look beautiful. Sirenia said I'm not fine at all. Ha, she touched her neck and said, Sirius, you don't have to hold back either. Sirius said yes, Lady Sirenia, and started kissing again. At morning she thinks is it morning already. Sirius said, Lady Sirenia, are you awake? No matter what happens, I will take responsibility for you, Lady Sirenia. Sirenia said, responsibility? If you want to take responsibility, you need to get a job. You need a stable income to get married. Sirius said, so, if I have a job, will you marry me? She said, Sirius, your hair and eyes. Has the curse been lifted? She thinks that opal like silver hair, the symbol of the Imperial family. Sirius said, yes, thanks to you, Lady Sirenia. Sirenia said, beautiful, your silver hair resembles an opal. Sirius said, I'm glad it pleases you, Lady Sirenia. Sirenia said, the curse is lifted now, right? Sirius replied, yes. Thanks to you, Lady Sirenia. She replied, I have to return to the Duke's house. If they realize I'm gone, it'll be a disaster. Sirius said, if we were married, I wouldn't have to send you back, Lady Sirenia. She cleared his throat and said, huh? A job, huh? She thinks has no one woken up? That was quick. Maid Daisy said, my lady, you're up early. The others stayed late at the party yesterday, so they haven't woken up yet. Would you like to have breakfast first? Sirenia said, no, I'll just change my clothes. She thinks that's a relief. It looks like no one noticed I was gone last night. If they had noticed. At this time the door knocked. Come in. A man said, my lady, Lady Canarian has come. She thinks Canarian? What brings her here unannounced? Canarian said, Nia. Sirenia said, Kana. What's going on? Kana said, I'm sorry for visiting so suddenly without contacting you. Sirenia said, please come inside first. Calm down first, and then tell me. Kana asked, thank you for lending me a dress too. Does it look very strange? Sirenia replied, no. It's just that Kana looks cute. Kana said, what? Nia, come on. Nia, after my graduation, I immediately returned to Jfine. But then my father brought up a marriage proposal. He told me to get married with Marquis Truck. Sirenia said, Marquis Truck? The young master of the Truck family is around the same age as Professor Lucarian, and he's telling you to get married to his father? Kana said, even now, I'm scared that my father might come looking for me at the Duke's house. Nia, I don't want a political marriage. Sirenia said, then, Kana, what do you want to do from now on? To avoid marriage, Kana said, Nia, I've been studying for a long time so I could leave the Count's household. I want to cut ties with the Count and free myself from my father. Nia, even if I become a commoner, will you still be friends with me? She said, what? Why are you asking something so obvious? Kana said, yeah. Then in high society, Kaya. Sirenia said, didn't I tell you before? I don't care about social reputation. Kana said, thank you, Nia. Then, I have a favor to ask. Sirenia said, yes. She thinks documents. Imperial Palace, Ministry of Justice. Then I'll go submit the renunciation papers now. I've never seen Kana so determined before. I hope everything works out well. Grandwin said, Lady Sirenia, what brings you to the Imperial Palace? I received a report about someone loitering around the palace. I didn't expect it to be you, Lady Sirenia. Sirenia said, a friend of mine has business in the palace, so I'm waiting for them. By the way, you're in uniform? It looks good on you. Grandwin said, thank you. After graduating, I was immediately appointed as the vice captain of the Imperial Knights. Sirenia thinks that part is consistent with the story at least. She said becoming vice captain right after graduation is impressive. She said when you praised Ariel, you always patted his head. He said, what about me? Sirenia replied, huh? Are you asking me to do it to you too? She thinks it feels like I am petting a big puppy. He said, I will wait with you until your friend arrives. If a strange person shows up, I'll protect you. Sirenia thinks a strange person in the Imperial Palace? Just say you want to skip work. She replied, thank you. A maid said from behind, "Lady Sirius, I am Her Majesty the Empress's personal lady-in-waiting. My name is Susan. Her Majesty the Empress has invited you to her palace." She said has invited Lady Sirius to the palace. Susan said Her Majesty is waiting, so please come with me. Sirius thinks so I don't have the right to refuse, huh? Grandwin said I will go as well. Lady Sirius already had a prior engagement with me, so allow me to accompany her. As the Vice Commander of the Imperial Knights, I believe I have more than enough qualifications to visit the Empress's palace. Susan said Her Majesty has ordered for Lady Sirius to be brought alone. So right now. Sirius said, "Grandwin, do you remember when you said you'd do me a favor last time?" Grandwin said yes. Sirius said then, "If Kana comes out, could you tell her not to wait for me and to return to the Duke's house first?" Grandwin said understood. Sirius replied yes, don't worry too much. Sirius thinks yes, don't worry too much. It'll be fine. Even if I enter a tiger's den, I just need to keep my wits about me. The worst case scenario is that I get bound by a restriction or cursed. As long as I avoid that, this could actually be an opportunity for me. The Empress is so shrouded in mystery that investigating her has been difficult. Arania, spider. A spider that tightly wraps its prey, the Empire, in its web, waiting for the time to devour it. If such a spider is waiting for me, then I might as well face it head on. Arania said, "Welcome, Miss Sirius. Thank you for accepting to come despite the discourteous invitation." Sirius said, "Please feel free to speak comfortably, Your Majesty." Arania said, "I speak formally to everyone, so you don't have to feel uncomfortable. By the way, I've really wanted to meet you, Miss Sirius. Shall we take our time and talk? When I heard news about you through Helios, I became really curious about what kind of person you are, Miss Sirius." She thinks, wait a minute. I heard praises that the terrorist incident was resolved thanks to Miss Daisy's efforts. This scene right now, wasn't it something Daisy went through? Arania said, "I heard praises that the terrorist incident was resolved thanks to Miss Sirius's efforts." Sirius thinks this situation is exactly the same as in the original story I remember. And what was that memory that just surfaced? I have dreamed of Daisy's experiences before, but I've never had a dream about meeting the Empress. It's way too vivid, almost like I've seen and experienced it myself. Sirius said, "No, that's not the case. It was Professor Lacarian who resolved everything." Arania said, "It's an achievement that should rightfully be recognized. But since the incident itself was covered up internally, it seems your contribution disappeared, which is unfortunate." Sirius said, "It's fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. Rather than the repercussions of making it public, I believe the peace of the Empire is more important." Arania said, "Oh my, how humble of you. Have some tea." Sirius thinks I don't know what might be in it. I should just pretend to drink it. She said, "Miss Sirius, you are the child of the former Duke of Argentine, weren't you?" Sirius thinks, why is she talking about my parents, who passed away? Arania said, "I truly regret the death of the late Duke and Duchess. If that hadn't happened, you would have been the one to inherit Argentine." Sirius said, "That's right. If my parents were still alive," Arania said, "I understand how you feel. The loneliness that lingers even within the frame of family, the sorrow of living with everything that should have been yours taken away. Ah, so this is just a cheap act." Sirius thinks even if she hides her true intentions behind sorrowful eyes, even if she pretends to comfort me with convincing words, don't you want to take back the duchy? It was originally yours, after all. So this is what she really wants to say. Arania said, "I understand because I have experienced a similar pain." She thinks if she's playing it like this, Sirius said, "Oh my," and she thinks I can't lose now. Sirius said, "What kind of pain has Your Majesty endured? Could you share it with only me? This is the beginning of a game of deception." Arania said, "You're willing to listen to my story? I'm touched." Where should I begin?" Sirius replied, "Right. Life doesn't always place what you long for most into your hands." Arania said, "I was born a princess of Brilliant, but no one paid attention to me. Everyone only cared about my brother, who would inherit the throne, even though I was more talented. My parents, who neglected me, arranged a marriage for me with His Majesty, Emperor of Islanda, without considering my wishes. Of course, I am satisfied with my current life. I feel a sense of responsibility as an empress, in my own way, and I am striving to lead the people to a better place. Senia said, I see. I admire how you fulfill your responsibilities as the empress in a foreign land. Arania said, I believe that if it was you, Miss Cernia, you would understand. Cernia thinks I can't move my body. I was being careless while I thought I was being cautious. Are you placing a restriction on me? Helios came and he said, excuse me. I have come to fetch Lady Cernia. She has a prior engagement. Arania smiled and said, oh my. The rumors that your curse has been lifted were true. Congratulations, Sirius. But Lady Cernia, didn't she have a prior engagement with Lord Grendwan? Cernia said, I tend to schedule multiple appointments when I go out once, since I don't often leave the Duke's house. Helios said, Mother. Arania said, it's rare to have so many guests in one day. Helios, what brings you here? Helios said, I apologize for not notifying you in advance. I came urgently to discuss matters regarding the Night of Blenheim event preparations. Night of Blenheim, a festival praying for a bountiful harvest as winter departs and spring arrives. A wizard is invited from the Mage Tower to conduct a ceremony to summon spring, and it's said that on this day, the Emperor, descendant of the Sun God, drives away darkness to ensure the sun stays longer in the sky. Cernia said, it's a festival that strengthens and sanctifies royal authority. Is the Empress the one preparing it? Grandwin said, then, we will take our leave now. Arania said, all right. Miss Cernia, see you next time. Cernia said, thank you for inviting me today, Your Majesty. She said, Sirius, what happened? You didn't contact me for a whole week after that. Do you know how worried I was? Grandwin said, were you worried? Cernia said, why are you smiling when I said I was worried? Did you miss me? Cernia cleared her throat. Helios said, I missed you. Cernia said, wait. Sirius said, did you feel bad because I kissed you without permission? Cernia said, I don't know. Ah, Sirius. Well, Cernia said, so, what were you doing for a week? Helios said, I got a job. Cernia said, a job? Sirius said, since I was told I need a stable income if I want to marry you, Lady Cernia. She thinks you actually did it? Weren't you a prince to begin with? Cernia said, where did you get a job? Sirius said, I got a job at the Magic Tower. I had a lot to take care of, so I couldn't contact you. I'm sorry for making you worry. Cernia said, it's okay, but next time, contact me. The mark on your neck, it's already gone. Yes, do you know how much I prayed for it to disappear quickly? Sirius said, did you even pray? I'm sorry. It was my first time back then. Cernia replied, it was the same for me. Sirius said, so, will you give me one more chance? Cernia replied, a chance? What kind of chance? Here, right now? As Sirius. I prayed back then because I was embarrassed that the maids might see us. There was no other meaning behind it. When you're so soft like this, it makes me keep expecting more. Cernia said, no. What do you mean? And that, the curse is completely lifted now, so there's no need to touch me anymore, right? Sirius said, there's still one debt left. Besides, I'm an adult now, so as long as you give your consent, there's no problem anymore, is there? Cernia cleared her throat. That's unfair. Sirius said, do you dislike it that much? Then, Cernia thinks if I refuse now, Sirius will stop. If I truly reject him, but the truth is no, it's just that, if it's what you want then it's okay. At some point, my pity for Sirius, who was cursed, became love. Sirius said, Lady Cernia. Cernia thinks Sirius isn't a child anymore. To me, he's a man now. Sirius said, are you thinking about something else while I'm here? She thinks, what is it? This little worry in my heart. Sirius said, I'll take you to the Crown Prince's palace, Lady Cernia. Please don't run away from me. Please, don't turn your back on me. Sirius thinks, is that why you had such a scared expression when I turned away earlier? Sirius said, so, is that what it was about? Sirius said, thank you for giving me this chance. I promise to live my whole life only for you, Lady Sirius. So, please stay with me. Even if your kindness is just pity, you're awake. Are you hurt anywhere? We're heading to the Duke's estate. Why aren't we teleporting like we usually do? Sirius said, I just wanted to spend a little more time with you, Lady Sirius. She said, we're already here. I think you can drop me off around here. Sirius said, Lady Sirius, by any chance? Sirius said, Sirius, it's not like I was with you because I had to be, so don't worry. Sirius said, your kindness, Lady Sirius, makes me act a little spoiled. This time, don't pray for the traces I leave to fade away. And whenever you see those traces, think of me. That's my little selfish wish. Have a peaceful night. She thinks, how does he say such cheesy things so easily? Kana said, Nia, I've been waiting for you. Sirius said, I'm back, Kana. Did Grendwin explain everything? Kana said, yes. He said you rushed off to help the Crown Prince after he made a big mistake. Sirius thinks, so, you fool. Sirius said, well, you see. The Crown Prince messed up with the preparations for the Night of Blenheim. I'm tired from helping fix it. Kana said, oh dear, go inside and rest. Nia, thank you for coming with me today. Sirius replied, you're welcome. Have a good night, Kana. She thinks Sirius likes me, and the reason I hesitate to like Sirius back is probably because of Daisy. Originally, Sirius was supposed to like Daisy, and Daisy's the one with the power of the spirits. Unlike me, pathetically, I still thought Daisy was the one who should be the main character. Sirius thinks, no. Let's pull myself together. This world has been different from the original story for a while now, so my feelings for Sirius won't change either. What's strange is that when I met the Empress earlier today, I saw Daisy in my mind. In a world without Daisy, why am I dreaming about her, and why do I remember the original story so clearly? What does this world want from me? I only remembered one line when it came to the original terrorist incident at the Academy. Academy terrorist incident. The Sword Saint killed the Marquis and was captured. That's how Daisy and Helios first met. But as I got closer to meeting the Sword Saint, even the small details started coming back to me. The Sword Saint's personal grudges, the incident was an explosive terrorist attack using an artifact, and the detailed events of the terrorist incident came to mind as if I had seen them myself. There were no casualties, but today's meeting with the Empress was the same. All I remember is that Daisy met the Empress. A week before the Night of Blenheim, a disciple of the Tower Master met the Empress. I couldn't read the part where the Empress tried to place a restraint on Daisy. Was this another intentional narrative trick? Unlike Daisy, who is protected by the spirits, an ordinary person like me would have been an easy target. If Sirius hadn't shown up just in time, I would have become the Empress's puppet. The dreams of Daisy are becoming more frequent, and the original story is coming back to me more vividly. Amid this overwhelming anxiety, I must protect everyone, the twins, my aunt and uncle, my friends, and even Sirius. I have to keep them all safe. Yesterday had felt strange, and as she recalled the events, she quietly said that something that usually took less than 10 minutes had taken much longer because the officials seemed disorganized. Sirius, slightly puzzled, asked, disorganized? And Kana nodded, explaining, yeah. A person who looked like a boss called an official and didn't approve the papers. Deep down, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling and thought to herself that it felt like they were watching her, and that she had waited for over 30 minutes. Hearing this, Sirius fell into thought, wondering if maybe the Empress had done it on purpose to delay her. However, Kana soon changed the subject and said, anyway, I'm leaving the Duke's house now. Caught off guard, Sirius replied. This is sudden, Kana. You can stay at the Duke's house a little longer and take your time to think things through. But Kana gently refused, saying, no, it's okay. Over the past week, I've thought deeply about what I should do if I give up my noble status. I'm not exceptionally talented, and I don't have any big dreams I can't let go of. I used to think I've lived a meaningless life, but when I look back, that's not true. I met Nia, didn't I? Surprised, Cernia asked. Me? And Kana smiled warmly as she said, Yes. I made a friend who believes in me, didn't I? My time was never meaningless. The reason I've become who I am today is because of the life I've lived so far. Graduates can work at the academy, so I sent a letter and got a reply. For a while, I'll be working at the academy. Hearing this, Cernia's face lit up as she said, You've already prepared everything. Congratulations. I believe you'll do great, Kana. With gratitude in her eyes, Kana replied, Nia, I won't forget your kindness. I'll be leaving for the academy right away. Don't worry too much. Cernia nodded and reassured her. Of course. Kana, you're a strong person. I'll prepare the carriage for you. Kana, write to me often. Not long after, a man approached and called out, Miss? And she responded, Yes? He informed her. A letter has arrived. As Cernia took the letter and clenched it slightly, she murmured, This is, it's a letter from Lord Licarian. I'll read it later. By the way, I was actually looking for you, Dane. The man asked. Is something the matter? And Cernia replied, I heard Ariel went out. Do you know where she went? He answered, If you mean Lady Ariel, she had breakfast and then left for the Imperial Palace. Surprised, Cernia repeated, The Imperial Palace? And the man continued, Yes. Also, there's a guest here to see you, my lady. Confused, she asked. Who? I wasn't expecting anyone, he then said. Lord Grendwin has arrived. I've guided him to the reception room. Shall I take you to him now? Just then, Grendwin appeared and called out, Lady Cernia! As he approached, he gently took her hand and said, I apologize for my sudden visit and rudeness, but I was worried after hearing that you met Her Majesty the Empress that day, so I came. Will you forgive my impoliteness? Remaining calm, Cernia replied, It's not that rude. Let's sit down and talk first. As they settled, he explained, After you headed to the Empress's palace, Kana came out. As promised to you, I sent Kana to the ducal estate first, then went to find Lord Helios and asked him to get you out of the Empress's palace. Hearing this, Cernia asked, Why were you so worried just because the Empress invited me to tea time? Grendwin hesitated before answering. Well, I think anyone would be flustered if the Empress suddenly invited them to tea time. Cernia quietly observed him, thinking that Grendwin was someone they could trust not to be on the Empress's side, yet she couldn't help but wonder how far that trust could really go. Still, she smiled and said, Exactly. This is my first time in a situation like this, so I was incredibly nervous. Thanks for helping me. Relieved, Grendwin replied. I'm glad I could be of help to you. After a brief pause, Cernia noticed his attire and asked, By the way, you're wearing your knight uniform again this time? Grendwin quickly responded, almost defensively. I'm not sneaking out this time. I really got permission to come. Honestly. Amused, Cernia laughed. Ha! You've grown up. Grendwin puffed up with pride and said, Of course. I'm not a kid who skips out anymore. Nodding with a soft smile, Cernia said, That's right. You're all grown up now. With confidence, he added, I'm a responsible man now. And with a teasing tone, she replied, If you get married, you'll be a good dad. Slightly flustered, he asked, Oh, really? The conversation between Cernia and Grendwin continued, and noticing his reaction, Cernia gently asked, Sorry, did I offend you? Grendwin quickly shook his head and replied, No, it's just, I don't even have a fiancé. Marriage feels too far away, so I stopped. His words trailed off before he suddenly called, Cernia, and she responded softly, Me too. Still, I want to try at least once. Slightly surprised, he asked, Are you saying you want to try being in a relationship once? And Cernia nodded, replying, Ah, yes. What were you trying to say? Brushing it off, Grendwin said, "It was nothing important. By the way, I know that you don't have a fiancé." Cernia let out a small sigh and said, "If I had one, I would have been married already." Yet internally, she felt flustered, wondering why he had to bring up romance at all, even though part of her had also wanted relationship advice, especially since she couldn't talk about Sirius to the twins. With curiosity, Grendwin then asked, "Cernia, who are you in a relationship with?" Caught off guard, she replied, "No one, not yet," though in her heart, she admitted they weren't officially dating. Grendwin leaned forward and said, "So you do have someone in mind? Who is he?" His serious tone made her hesitate, wondering if she should reveal that it was serious, even though it hadn't been something serious from the beginning. It was just frustrating. After a brief pause, she finally answered, "Yes." Realizing he might have pushed too far, Grendwin said, I didn't mean to make things difficult for you." But Cernia reassured him, "No, it's okay. I was the one who brought it up first. I guess I just let my words slip out since I felt so comfortable with you." Slightly surprised, he murmured, "Me, comfortable," before quickly adding, "I also feel comfortable around you." Hearing that, Cernia smiled and said, "I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks we're close," encouraged, Grendwin said. "If you're okay with it, I'd be happy to offer advice in any way I can. Now that we're at it, feel free to speak openly." Taking a breath, Cernia admitted, "That I think I like someone. I don't know what I should do." Confused, Grendwin replied, "Huh? Can't you just say what you are feeling to him just like that? If it were that simple, I wouldn't have worried at all." Cernia then turned the question back on him and asked, "You still don't have anyone you like, right?" Caught off guard, he said, "How did the topic suddenly shift to that?" "I like Belle. I also like Leo." But Cernia quickly clarified, "Not like those people. What I mean is someone you always miss. When you look at their face you can't help but think they're cute, or someone who makes your heart beat faster and there's a feeling you want to protect them." Hearing this, Grendwin fell into thought and said, "Someone I want to protect, is that love? Before you leave, I want to ask something. Is your crush someone I know?" And Cernia quietly replied, "Yes." He hesitated before asking, "Is he the crown prince?" Which made Cernia inwardly question why Helios was suddenly mentioned. Choosing not to answer directly, she simply said, "Now, the last question is finished, right?" Understanding her reluctance, Grendwin nodded and said, "Understood. Thank you for your time." As she raised her hand slightly, about to say something, he added with concern, "By any chance, if you get a fever or feel pain anywhere, please let me know." Cernia reassured him, "Since it's spring already, you don't need to worry, because I heard that those who have tea time with the Empress often find themselves in such situations." After he left, Cernia's thoughts grew heavier, realizing that if Grendwin was suspicious of the Empress, then Helios must be as well. And perhaps she would need to talk with him someday. Soon after, she focused on the information she had received, details about the owner of the flower shop, Terrarium, on Sayudelian Street, believed to be the manager of Urania, along with notes about its size and location near the Imperial Palace, information that didn't even exist in the original work. Realizing its importance, she decided that no matter how small the detail, she needed to inform Lucarian and gather as much as possible for later. Calling out, "Daisy!" she was answered with, "Yes, miss." Cernia then instructed, "Please deliver this letter to the academy." And Daisy replied, "Understood." After a brief pause, Cernia asked, "Has Ariel returned?" And Daisy answered, "Yes, she said she would sleep first." Nodding, Cernia said, "I see. Thank you, Daisy." And Daisy gently replied, "Have a peaceful night, miss." As the night grew quiet, Cernia sat reading a book before suddenly thinking that maybe she should go to bed early. But just then, a strange voice echoed, excitedly saying, "I found it! I found it! A kind human!" Startled, Cernia looked around and asked, "Who's there?" "What do you mean by that?" The voice quickly replied, "I've been thinking about you the whole time and struggled to get here. You said you came looking for me?" I originally planned to come as soon as the curse was lifted, but that jerk didn't release me. What a terrible human! Can you believe it? He actually told me not to make noise, and dragged me all the way to the magic tower. Confused, Sirius muttered. Magic tower, perhaps are you a spirit? And the voice happily confirmed. Yes. I thought maybe I wouldn't get to see Thanatos before I died. Thank you for lifting the curse, kind human. Still trying to understand, Sirius asked. Who is Thanatos? But the spirit continued energetically. Therefore, I came to repay your kindness. Kind human, make a contract with me. Taken aback, Sirius hesitated and said, a contract with a spirit. But I don't have the power to connect with spirits. Yet the spirit reassured her. That's okay. Since you lifted the curse, we can be connected. Surprised, she repeated. We can be connected? Before she could process it further, a familiar voice interrupted. So you're here. I didn't mean to threaten you. I apologize. Turning around, Sirius said. Sirius. Then firmly, she added, first let it free. But Sirius refused, saying, no, I'm taking this thing and heading back. Not backing down, Sirius said. I have something I want to ask. Can't I? Deep in thought, she realized that making a contract with a spirit could give her the strength to protect herself, and she also wanted to understand more about Sirius' curse. Carefully, she began piecing everything together and asked, were you the spirit used in Sirius' curse? The spirit quickly answered, yes. Sirius then continued, is there a reason why Sirius is blocking you from making a contract with me? Sirius responded seriously. Sirius, you probably know the person who cursed me, don't you? I'm worried that this spirit might cause you to get entangled with that person. Despite his concern, Sirius calmly replied, yes, thank you, Sirius. But I'm fine. In her mind, she wondered if the person he meant was the woman with red eyes, the same one who had locked the spirit. When she questioned further, the spirit explained. To be precise, that woman wasn't targeting me. Confused, Sirius asked. Huh? You know her too? What do you mean she wasn't targeting you? The spirit then began explaining. It's a bit complicated to explain. Do you remember what we talked about earlier? The power to connect with one spirit. Even kind-hearted humans have magic, though it's just a tiny bit. Most humans are born with at least a small amount of magical power. Although humans distinguish curses from magic, in the end, curses are just another form of magic. To put it simply, a curse obviously uses magical power too. The only difference is that you pay a price to minimize how much power you use. However, both the caster and the target of the curse must have magical power. Recalling something, Sirius added. But sometimes there are humans who don't have any magical power, not even a tiny bit. Didn't you say that both the caster and the target must have magical power to cast a curse? No magical power equals no curse. Then she questioned. But if one of them doesn't have any magical power, doesn't that mean the curse won't work? The spirit nodded and explained further that because humans have endless greed, they attempted to cast a curse on someone who couldn't be affected by curses, and so they used spirits to do it instead. Realizing the truth, Sirius said, so, the Empress has no magical power at all. I see, the Empress used a spirit to cast a curse. Thinking back, she realized this wasn't just a forced plot, but something much deeper. The spirit then revealed. That's right. That woman with red eyes was originally targeting my twin spirit, Thanatos. The curse she wanted to cast was a soul-binding curse. It was quite difficult, and in order to succeed, the summoned spirit needed good compatibility. I got summoned and was completely thrown off. Processing everything, Sirius asked. Earlier, you told me the curse was lifted and we were connected. Is this fine? The spirit happily replied. Of course. Humans call it a curse, but it's really just contract magic. After a brief moment of resolve, Sirius declared. Okay, let's make a contract. At that moment, Sirius called out urgently. Sirius! But she turned to him calmly and said, Sirius, I know you're worried about me. He hesitated. Then, but she continued firmly. But I don't want you to shoulder all the problems alone. The me right now is very weak. You asked me not to run away, you remember? Now, I won't run away. Hearing her determination, Sirius could only say her name softly. Sernia. Clearing her throat, she said. Ahem. Let's go ahead and proceed with the contract. In her heart, she resolved that she would make the contract no matter what. The spirit then asked eagerly, Tell me your name, kind human. And Sernia answered proudly, I'm Sernia Ardentine. Immediately, the spirit declared, I, a high-ranking spirit, Hypnos, came here at your summons. I hereby acknowledge you as my contract partner, kind human. I look forward to being with you. And with that, a new bond was formed, marking the beginning of a power that would change everything. As the contract was completed, the small spirit suddenly called out excitedly, Sernia! Finally, I could meet you! Hearing its cheerful voice, Sernia felt a strange mix of emotions and thought to herself that she was happy, yet at the same time, she couldn't believe that this tiny being in front of her was actually a spirit. Still, remembering that it had claimed to be a high-ranking spirit, she tried to stay hopeful and asked, What kind of spirit are you? The spirit proudly replied, I am the twin of the spirit of death, Thanatos. Slightly taken aback, Sernia asked again, You're a strong spirit, right? And the spirit answered with confidence, I'm the spirit of sleep. Hearing that, Sernia froze for a moment, thinking, The spirit of sleep? Oh, let's not lose hope. Trying to reassure herself, she continued, Still, since you said you're a high-ranking spirit, you're strong, aren't you? The spirit nodded enthusiastically and said, Yes. I can make anyone fall asleep. It also works for insomnia. You can call me if you can't sleep at night. At that moment, Sernia's expectations completely collapsed as she thought to herself that the strong spirit she had imagined was now nothing more than a distant dream. However, the spirit didn't seem to notice her disappointment, and happily said, Now that the contract's done, I'm off to the spirit world. Call my name when you need me. It's fine even if you shout it in your mind. I'll be summoned if you call out while thinking of me. Letting out a quiet sigh, Sernia replied, Okay, take care. Despite everything, she reflected that she had chosen not to run away, yet in the end, she had made a contract with the spirit of sleep. Glancing at Sirius, she wondered if he remembered the promise to always cherish oneself from now on, and as she resolved to no longer run away, she hoped that he would keep that promise as well. The next morning, Sernia woke with determination, thinking that since she hadn't been able to see Ariel the previous day, she would go visit her early. Greeting the maid, she said, Good morning, Daisy. Where is Ariel? Daisy replied with concern. Miss Ariel got sick after meeting the Empress yesterday, so she's resting in her room. Startled, Sernia hurried over, hearing Daisy's worried voice telling someone to calm down and move slowly. As she entered the room and saw Ariel lying weakly on the bed, she cried out, Ariel! Daisy explained. Since she came back from the Imperial Palace yesterday, she's been in this condition. Recalling something, Sernia muttered, Flu symptoms, and remembered Grendwin's warning that if anyone developed a fever or felt pain after meeting the Empress, they should inform him immediately. Without hesitation, Sernia ordered, Daisy, get a priest for Ariel. I'm going to the Imperial Palace. Daisy, slightly confused, asked, You don't have any plans for going out today, right? May I ask the reason for your visit to the Imperial Palace? Sernia answered firmly. I have to meet Grendwin. I might be late, so please let Dane know as well. Deep in thought, she realized she had foolishly believed that after her intervention, events wouldn't follow the original story anymore. But now it was clear something had gone terribly wrong, and she was certain that Grendwin would know why Ariel had developed a fever. As she arrived, Grendwin rushed toward her and called out, Sernia, she replied. Grendwin? I was just looking for you. Slightly out of breath, he said. Me? When I saw the Ardentine's carriage, I rushed over. But as he looked at her closely, his expression turned serious and he asked, Why do you look like that? Recalling their previous conversation, Sernia said, Yesterday, you told me that sometimes a fever happens after having tea with that person, right? In that case, what will happen? Grenwyn's face grew tense as he asked. By any chance, did someone around you experience similar symptoms? And Cernia answered without hesitation. Yes, Ariel. After a brief pause, he said, I believe in you, but there's a process that needs to be followed before we can have a detailed conversation. Would it be alright if we go to Helios's palace? Hearing this, Cernia hesitated for a moment, questioning whether she could truly trust Grenwyn and Helios, and worrying that if she said the wrong thing, the Empress might find out. But in the end, she pushed those fears aside, realizing that right now, Ariel was far more important than anything else. Cernia stepped into the Crown Prince's office, her eyes widening as she took in the grand surroundings, thinking, Whoa! It's definitely different from Sirius Palace. A maid beside her quietly announced, This is the Crown Prince's office. Suddenly, Sirius appeared, his voice sharp. Oh, isn't this Lady Cernia, who ditched me and ran off with Sirius? Cernia quickly bowed, keeping her composure. I pay my respects to the Crown Prince, descendant of the sun and the glory of the Empire. That day was so chaotic that I couldn't properly greet you. Thank you for your help. Helios, observing her, said calmly. Coming here with Grenwyn must mean you're here to go through the procedure. Hearse, hand it over. A man with purple hair handed the letter to Helios, explaining. Yes. This is the Oath of Truth, a spell that binds both Lady Cernia and me at the same time. We can each ask 3 questions, and the one being questioned must answer with the truth. Cernia nodded solemnly. Yes, I am aware. I also know that lying incurs a penalty. It's a spell used in trials as well. Then, place your hands. Amid countless lies, Cernia felt the gravity of the moment as she recited. Here, Cernia Ardentine and Helios completed the oath. Helios Aslanda swear upon their hearts to speak nothing but the truth for 3 questions. Cernia turned to Helios and said respectfully, Prince Helios, please ask your question first. Helios began carefully. Very well. Are you my mother's person? She replied clearly. No. Cernia thought to herself. What question would be the most effective? And then asked, Please explain in detail why your highness is keeping the Empress in check. Helios took a deep breath, his voice steady as he recounted. In detail, this will be a long story. I was about 4 years old. While exploring the palace alone, I fell from a building, and someone caught me. It was a woman in a black robe. She appeared whenever I was in trouble and helped me. I called her guardian. The last time I saw her was when I was 10. She told me about Sirius' existence and whereabouts. She urged me to grow stronger to protect myself, and then she disappeared. That is why I keep my mother in check. Cernia, curious and cautious, asked, What made you trust a stranger so much who entered the palace? Helios clarified. Is that your second question? She replied quickly. Ah, no. Please proceed with the second question. Helios nodded. There is a question I was supposed to ask first, but I'll ask you something else instead. Cernia leaned in and requested. Tell me everything I don't know about the Academy incident. Would it be alright if I write my answer down and burn it here afterward? Helios agreed. Well, both me and hers are bound by the Oath of Truth, but if you still feel uneasy, we can do that. Professor Dran and Rebecca belong to an organization called Urania and are under a prohibition spell. The masked intruder who broke into the Academy was captured, revealing that the motive behind the crime was the exile of the Sword Master. A few days ago, the second son of the truck Marquiate, who came down to the Academy, turned out to be connected to the Sword Master. Moreover, the Sword Master has already surrendered his dagger to the Imperial family. After hearing that your highness came to meet that person upon receiving a letter from His Majesty the Emperor, I became convinced that Her Majesty the Empress was behind the terrorist attack. It is suspected to have been a deliberate crime. Cernia, processing everything, asked her second formal question. Ariel develops a fever after meeting Her Majesty the Empress. Please explain the cause of this phenomenon and how to resolve it. Some nobles who had tea time with my mother in the past also suffered from a fever. After the fever, they became blindly loyal to her. But I have yet to figure out the solution. This is all I have discovered so far. Perhaps realizing that I was investigating, fewer people started developing fevers. She continued. Professor Dran and Rebecca also met Her Majesty the Empress while preparing for the founding festival, and suddenly, their magical power increased. Could this be related as well? Those two were under a prohibition spell, so the nobles could be affected in a similar way. How about compiling a separate list of Her Majesty the Empress faction? By tracking the nobles' movements, we might be able to uncover Her Majesty's plans. Helios responded. Yes, keeping an eye on the nobles might not be a bad idea. The purple-haired man added, Your Highness, you've already stayed up 3 nights because of the Blenheim night incident. Helios laughed softly. Well, it's fine. It's not like I'm going to act on it immediately, just considering the possibility. Now, let's proceed with the final question. I'll follow the original procedure for this one. Cernia, taking a steady breath, said firmly. From now on, will you always speak the truth to me? But internally she thought, this question won't exactly weed out spies. Then she added cautiously, to be honest, I cannot promise to speak only the truth to Your Highness for the rest of my life. However, as long as Your Highness does not change your decision, I will never betray you, and I swear to never lie in a way that would harm Your Highness. Helios studied her for a moment and replied, That wasn't the unwavering loyalty I was hoping for, but very well. Now it's your turn. Gathering her resolve, Cernia asked the question that had been on her mind. Who is the Guardian? Cernia felt a shiver run down her spine as Helios's words about the Guardian echoed in her mind. I didn't expect you to ask about the Guardian, he said, a note of surprise in his tone. It doesn't seem like a question that will help you. Cernia nodded unfazed. That's fine. Helios continued, his voice quiet but firm. Guardian would always appear whenever I needed her. She said she hopes I don't die. She told me she would give up her life if it meant helping me. Maybe the Guardian isn't human after all. Even after 6 years, she still looks exactly the same. Meanwhile, the purple-haired man added calmly, Lady Ariel's fever will get better naturally as time goes by. Cernia acknowledged him. Understood. Grendwin, ever attentive, offered, I'll escort you. Cernia shook her head. It's okay. I'll be going back to the Duke's house with Sirius. Turning to Helios, she gave a curt bow. Thank you so much for your help, Helios. I'll see you later. Elsewhere, Ariel lay pale and weak, murmuring, No doubt, Helios explained. The curse and the ban are entangled, causing this to happen. It's not difficult to release the curse, but the blood of the one who cast the curse is needed. Cernia clenched her fists, thinking, Because of me, Ariel, it's because I met the Empress. I'm going to see the Empress again. Sirius grasped her hand firmly, alarm in his eyes. No, you can't. It's too dangerous. That woman is on a completely different level compared to an ordinary wizard. Her mental magic is so powerful that it surpasses mine. Cernia's gaze never wavered. That's why I'm going. If someone like me, who doesn't know how to use magic and has no strength, goes, the Empress will likely drop her guard. Sirius's grip tightened. If you were to fall and collapse because of the ban, I don't have the strength to keep my composure. It's okay. Nothing will happen. Besides, if something happens, you said you'll come to rescue me right away, right? I believe in you, Sirius. Sirius exhaled, realizing he couldn't stop her. Seriously, I guess I can't. Promise me you'll come back safely. Cernia smiled softly. Of course. Want a pinky promise? Sirius held out his finger. Like this? She linked hers with his. Yes. When I get back, there's something I want to say. That I'm sorry for keeping my feelings hidden all this time. I also care about you a lot. That I like you. Later, the Empress's voice echoed in the Grand Hall. Since you're here looking for me, It looks like Sirius told you about the curse. My heart's been pounding since this morning, wondering when you would come. It's great to see you again, Lady Cernia. Shall we enjoy a longer tea time today? Cernia bowed lightly, steadying herself. I'm grateful for your hospitality despite my abrupt visit. Just a single drop of blood is enough to break the curse. What now? What should I do? The Empress's expression shifted to something calculating. No, I also wanted to meet you. Sorry, I did say I was better than my older brother, yet I had no choice but to marry into the Empire, didn't I? So, I've decided to get revenge. Revenge? Cernia asked cautiously. The Empress's eyes glinted. To the brilliant kingdom that disrespected me. At first, I was planning to manipulate the Emperor and declare war, but unfortunately, we're not on such friendly terms. Instead, I decided to create an emperor that I can control as I please. I've waited so long, but kids grow so slowly. They don't even understand their mother's feelings and go off making their own plans. Now I've run out of patience. If that's the case, it's better for me to become the emperor. Plus, the timing couldn't be better. Cernia's mind raced as the Empress continued. Oh my! I seem to end up telling you everything. Your actions at the Academy and the fact that you lifted Sirius' curse was truly surprising. Cernia's eyes narrowed. How did you? The Empress smiled mysteriously. You know there's more than just one or two things at the palace. Well, I really do have an extra eye though. All of Helios's senses are connected with mine. I was going to cast a taboo, but it would have been too hard for a child, so just connecting the senses was a lucky break. Cernia's heart pounded as she realized the stakes had never been higher. The Empress was powerful, cunning, and patient, and now, Cernia had to find a way to protect herself, her friends, and Ariel from a threat she could barely comprehend. If you want, I can continue from here and show Cernia's next steps as she prepares to confront the Empress while keeping Sirius and Ariel safe.